the grand end-of-the-century Great Exhibition of London. Surely there is not a soul who has failed to hear of it. Wondrous new works of culture and industry from every corner of the globe had converged on Hyde Park, welcoming over 50 million visitors.
That's a lot of people.
The last great hurrah of this century. Astonished and delighted people of all nations, and ended on a note of resounding success. But
there's the but.
As regards to the terrible catastrophe that occurred during the festivities, very few are aware my friend Mr. Herlock Sholmes had a hand in unraveling the matter. For from the shadows, it was he who earnestly unearthed the facts of the case.
Nor is it us.
And like the centerpiece of the Great Exhibition, which rose high into the skies of Hyde Park,
something's on fire.
Sholmes's brilliant deductions, as clear and lofty as the crystal tower itself, brought the truth to light.
I am going to big brain this case.
We're here at the showground of the Great Exhibition, which is absolutely packed with people.
I don't like this sound. Sounds like something suspicious from Doctor Who. It feels nefarious. Not the music, but the voiceover effect that's being used for whoever I'm assuming is like just speaking on an intercom. I don't trust it. I don't trust it. Could just be that it's midnight and I'm tired, but I don't trust it. Anyways, we're here at the showground of the Great Exhibition, and I don't think I took off my hotkey from this morning, so let me go ahead and take that off. While I do that, let me go ahead and properly welcome you all here to episode number 28. Alright, I think I got everything sorted. But yes, hello everyone, Allie here, and welcome to the Gold Mine. Thank you so much for joining me here on another episode at Allie's Treasure Trove. Getting into episode number 28 here of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles playthrough. Just kicking off Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve, case number 3. So we're going to be seeing something crazy going down here at the Great Exhibition, and it seems like Sholmes has a big part in solving it, so wonder what he'll be up to this time. And let's continue with the voice.
The weather is unusually fine, and we're about to witness a most extraordinary scientific experiment.
That can't go wrong at all, can it?
Ladies and gentlemen, the 20th century will see steam engines and electrical power dominate the world.
William and Turner. Interesting. That guy looks weird. I don't trust him. He's got a weird hat. Don't trust him.
Horse-drawn carts will give way to the motor car. Ships will sprout wings and take to the skies.
Will they know?
We showcase even more advanced technology. A glimpse into the future. A world first. A demonstration of my super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine. A man will literally be disassembled by a pulse of high voltage electricity and beamed to another location.
Oh, that sounds super safe. Oh, that sounds safe. Hey, dude, you just want to get zapped into another dimension? Sounds great, huh?
Whereupon his body will be reassembled by a series of complex calculations exactly as it was before.
I knew it. This is some spooky Doctor Who-ish right here. Knew it. Called it from the voice. Called it. Voice effects gave it away. This is very sinister. Don't trust it. So I'm guessing that somebody dies. Top hat guy here is gonna die. And we're gonna have to solve the case. He looks suspicious. He could just be generic character, though. Why are you running like that?
In but a few moments from now,
This man will die.
this gentleman will, in the blink of an eye,
Die.
complete an incredible journey through the air.
Will he?
To arrive an instant later on the crystal tower behind you.
This guy sounds a little crazy. Oh my goodness. This guy's a little nutso. This dude better have good insurance. Why would you volunteer for this? I know, it didn't work. Who would have guessed? wonder if he gets murdered. Maybe the scientist gets murdered. Alright, Sholmes' Suite, 9:36 a.m. You know, it'd be cool if this was just the whole Sholmes and Iris case. That would actually be super sick gameplay. Alright, we're starting off with Ryunosuke. Dreams crushed. Already crushed our dreams. Runo! Runo, are you listening? Oh, sorry, what was that, Iris? What's the matter with you? You've been miles away all morning. Didn't you like what I cooked for breakfast? Oh, Iris, I love what you cooked for breakfast. I don't know what it was, but I'd eat it. No, that's not it at all. What were we talking about again? Today's paper. It's full of news about the Great Exhibition again. Yes, the Great Exhibition. I'd like to go sometime. You're really not your usual self today. You seem very down. Don't you agree, Hurley?
Why, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Did you say something, Iris?
Alright, since we're back in depressed Sholmes state...
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces. Bright and early for the daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere.
I pulled up the lyrics. Just doesn't really fit with this background music. Alright. No gosh, you're even more down. Oh my goodness. Why are you like this? I swear, Sholmes is like one of the greatest characters ever created. He just got so spooked that he fell on the ground and then instantaneously he's like, my hands are ready to go, dude. When'd you show up?
When did you arrive, Mr. Naruhodo?
I've been here for about half an hour already. We had breakfast together.
What? Why didn't you mention it before?
I, thought you might have known I was here, you know, because breakfast. And also, I live upstairs.
Iris is quite right. You're clearly lacking in vim. So much so that I didn't notice your presence.
Thanks.
Of course, I could deduce the reason perfectly well within some simple observations.
What?
Let's see. Yes, for example, your tousled hair this morning with all its unruly spikes. Clearly it can be deduced, therefore, that...
Let me stop you there, Mr. Sholmes, because I think I can see where this is going. My hair always looks like this. It always has. Ever since we first met, in fact.
No, really? How interesting. It just doesn't look like a haircut as such, I suppose.
Thanks again. It crossed my mind recently that it's been 6 months now. 6 months? Since I was forbidden from working in court. So I've been wondering how much longer I'm going to be banned. Oh, well, that would explain why you seem rather glum. Don't you agree, Hurley? Oh my goodness.
Did you say something, Iris?
Ah, back to moping. What's the matter with Mr. Sholmes today? He seems even more down in the dumps than me. And I have a good reason. And I know! The Great Exhibition is open. You think he'd be excited. Oh, why don't we all go see it together?
I want to, of course I do, but I can't! Not for the time being.
Why not?
Why not? Why not? Because I'm a great detective after all.
So you're embroiled in some tricky case that you can't be distracted from, is that it? I don't remember hearing that you're working on a case, Hurley. I suppose I should try to find out what's going on. Let's talk to Mr. Kermit. Let's talk about events 6 months ago. Yeah, boy, with that weird bloody collar. Half a year ago now, I took on the defense of a young girl in a trial heard at the Old Bailey. What at first seemed like a simple case of murder that took place at a London pawnbrokery turned out to be one part of a much more far-reaching plot that involved the British government. During the course of the trial, it was found that I made an unavoidable, yet at the same time, unforgivable mistake. Played some Japanese... What's it called? Yeah. He played the Morse code, Japanese Morse code.
Words fail me. This situation is utterly deplorable. Mr. Naruhodo?
Yes, my lord.
I will decide upon your fate following the conclusion of this trial.
Of course, my lord. But at least Gina won't die, so I guess it was all worth it in the end. In the end, I had my right to represent people in court revoked. I was told I had to spend my time in research and study, so that's what I've been doing. You have, haven't you, Runo? Reading all those big fat tomes about British law up in your room? And the notes about Sholmes' old cases?
Brewing Iris's special blends of tea. Fetching my daily bread for me. You've become something of a manservant around here. Start on the silverware next, Master Naruhodo.
Well, I'm thinking of going to ask the powers that be to reconsider. Specifically Lord Strongheart at the British Supreme Court on Whitehall. Lord Strongheart? That's that suspicious gentleman.
Nah, the delightful Lord Chief Justice, not my favorite fellow.
Interesting, you want to explain? I would like to know. He's not mine either, but he's the man I have to talk to. I still don't trust him, but we'll see. He's the only one who can grant permission for me to start working in the courts again. I came to Britain to become the best lawyer I could, and I can't do that just sitting around here. Alright, let's talk about the Great Exhibition, and we'll talk about your crippling depression once again, Kermit. The whole of London has been swept up in this Great Exhibition, hasn't it?
The most advanced science, the most modern technology, the finest works of art and feats of engineering. For the next 6 months,
Wow!
our capital will be showcasing these things and the world will be watching.
I guess the 50 million people make more sense now just because they're not all at once. I was like, how is that physically possible? And we have a new iris. I want to say sprite, but whatever you would call this. Oh, do you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to look down on London from one of those lovely balloons. Look down on? Do you mean those things fly? Yes, of course. They fly high in the sky and don't even need wings to do it. All you need is hot air. But how? How does hot air have anything to do with flying? It makes no sense. And I can't understand it at all. To be fair, I too don't understand how hot air balloons work. Alright, it's just, I guess, that hot air rises, and right? I guess that just takes you up. Alright. Air convection currents or something, I don't know. That's true of a lot of new scientific discoveries. Most people can't understand them at first. But in 100 years' time, all these things will just be common knowledge. And that is true. I just know hot air balloons fly. I don't really think about why, but they do. And I suppose they might be. Mind you, some of the science being demonstrated seems very questionable. I heard some dude's gonna get zapped into the building and then we all act surprised when he actually just gets fried and dies. No, something went wrong on the open experimentation stage yesterday, apparently. There was a huge explosion. Still, I wish I'd seen it, though. I'd love to see how bad some of these scam experiments really are. Iris is like, I'm so much better than you. Says the innocent 10-year-old girl, hey! That is a college graduate 10-year-old, Renosuke. Show some respect. Put some respect on Iris's name, dude. Come on.
See here, every page of this paper carries some article or other about the Great Exhibition. But the brighter things shine, the darker the shadows that are cast behind them. Personally, I find myself drawn to the darkness, to the impenetrable. That is my proper atmosphere.
Is that why you're being super edgy? Shadows cast behind, is that a metaphorical way of referring to the back page of the paper? Let's open the court record and investigate, because apparently I keep punting the game by not clicking on stuff. Every article on the front page is news about the Great Exhibition. Public experiments to demonstrate brand new scientific ideas, cultural exhibits from around the globe. It's also positive and hopeful about the coming century. We must all go to see it properly before too long. It's cool if something like this existed nowadays. The Reaper attacked! Hold up, hold up, hold up. Yo, did we zap Van Zeeks into the next dimension? I want to flatten this out before I click on it, even though it's not required. Lord Van Zeeks and compatriot cornered. St. Bartholomew's Hospital. It'd be funny if it was like, unfortunately, we have to announce that St. Bartholomew's Hospital has rats. Lost cat. Better not be Wagahai. Ruffians aim to intimidate a man of justice. So many glowing reports about the Great Exhibition, everything that's going on there. Other than this rather gloomy-looking one, that is. Wait, what? What's the matter, Runo? Lord Van Zeeks got shanked. French court hears glass eye case. The jeu de paix of Neuilly was presented today with a most curious case of a lady who refused to pay her dues for the purchase of one glass eye. Fun fact, TCG player Billy has one glass eye as well. And he had... his most recent one made is a Sharingan from Naruto. It is a fully activated Sharingan. That's what he has. That's what he has. That is his eye now. That is his eye. That's on a... he has a regular one too. Because his mom was like, you can't wear that all the time. What if you need to go somewhere? What if you need a job interview? He's like, Mom, I do jujitsu for a living. And I work at a card shop. Nobody cares. But he has a regular one too. He doesn't wear it. But DCG player Billy has a Sharingan. Ooh, Altamont Gas Company advertisement. Fiery ball gown sets dance hall ablaze. Evening of cordial dancing turned into a blazing ball last week when one of the lady attendees' dresses accidentally caught on fire. In her panic at the sudden appearance of flames at her feet, the lady dashed madly about the hole. And yeah, just spread the whole fire around. Just run around spreading fire. Makes sense. But anyways. I don't think I can read anything else, unfortunately. Something about Harvard. Massachusetts. The Reaper attacked! That's Lord Van Zeeks! This must be what Mr. Scholes was talking about. Does he know any more, I wonder? Why do I feel like Sholmes and Lord Van Zeeks used to be like best buddies back in the day or something? Aren't they around the same age, too? 34. I think Van Zeeks is, what, 32 or 36? Somewhere in that range. He's not on the, he's not in our people queue at the moment. Yeah, she has a degree in medicine. This is a very well-educated 10-year-old. I don't want to hear no smack talk, Renosuke. Alright.
Why are you investigating depression?
Are you investigating a particularly tricky case at the moment, Mr. Sholmes?
You could say that, I suppose.
Nothing more to add? That's not like you. What sort of case is it?
Shh! Quiet, Mr. Naruhodo. We must not discuss it here. You never know who might be listening.
Iris is like, excuse you, you're acting very strangely, Hurley. What do you mean, Iris? Well, usually. The more mysterious and complicated a case is, the better Hurley's mood.
Nah.
Is there really a case that's bothering you?
Iris, please, you mustn't exercise your astute powers of observation and deduction on me without invitation. Remember what I always say? Put yourself in the shoes of the individual about whom you're making deductions.
You say that, do you? You, Mr. Sholmes?
Never mind. Once I've had a cup of tea, I must make my way at once to the crime scene.
Bruh, I don't think your neck was supposed to move like that. That was unsettling. Somebody help get this man a neck brace.
No.
That was a deep sigh.
No.
Kermit sigh. It says in the paper that Lord Van Zieks was attacked. That's terrible.
You know the legend of the Reaper of the Bailey, of course, don't you? Only too well, in fact.
Yes, Prosecutor Barack Van Zieks. Which I think is actually Baroque, but I'm still calling him Barack. Barack Obama Van Zieks. They say that if the Reaper is the prosecutor in a case, there's no salvation for whoever's in the dock. Even if the defendant is found not guilty. Yeah, well, he got what's coming to him, so. Once the Reaper has someone in his sights, one way or another, that person's time left on this earth will be short. You know, I feel bad. He's kind, you know, obviously we know he's more than just kind of a douche, but I feel bad for him. Everyone accuses him of, like, cursing people and, like, randomly murdering people who get proven innocent. It's like, no, sometimes stuff just happens to people. Like, wasn't he blamed for, like, some dude getting hit by a car? Or, like, a horse-drawn carriage? In, like, game 1, like, in part of the, oh, this is what's happened to people that got proven innocent. They all ended up dying. It's like, yeah, everyone dies at some point. Doesn't mean it's a curse. Just imagine. Like, you're just trying to do your job. With a little dash of racism mixed in. But still, I want to know what's up with him and his old Japanese friend that had the ultimate betrayal. I want to know what's up with that.
London's finest rogues always find some way around the law. They'll stop at nothing to secure an acquittal at trial. Falsifying evidence, paying sham witnesses, threatening jurors, bribing judges. But even such devious tactics as these cannot save them from the hand of the Reaper. As you've experienced yourself, haven't you, Mr. Naruhodo?
Yes, I've seen the Reaper's retribution at work.
Many of these criminal rogues are reckless and quite unafraid to die. And if a leader among their fraternity is seen to have been taken by the Reaper, retaliation like this does occur. Really, the capital has a never-ending supply of such scoundrels.
So, do you mean Lord Van Zieks has been attacked like this before? This isn't the first time? Well, I mean, he does have a scar on his face.
He's quite an accomplished combatant, you know. He doesn't take these attacks lying down.
So we have confirmed that Van Zieks 2 is certified to have thrown hands. So the question now that we have... Oh, well, before we get into that, the question we now have is have Sholmes and Van Zieks certifiably thrown hands at each other. Because we know Sholmes is down to throw hands with anybody. That is the question. We know to be or not to be crap. That was last case. The question is if they've thrown hands.
Although it seems that his assailants were armed with guns this time.
Oh my goodness. Is he alright then? Is Lord Van Zieks hurt?
My dear fellow, how on earth would I know?
Well, in the article here it says, ask the one of Lord Van Zieks and his condition. All will be revealed in tomorrow morning's edition. That's kind of crappy, the newspaper.
I see. Well, we shall have to be patient then.
No, I can't wait until tomorrow.
In that case, you shall have to inquire with somebody in the know.
But who? Lord Strongheart, perhaps? Or we go to the Rat Hospital and see if Van Zieks checked in.
Well, I must be leaving now.
Yes, understood. See you later, Mr. Sholmes.
You really are a shameless liar sometimes, my dear fellow.
What? Me? Never.
You seek to put me off my guard and follow me, don't you? Well, you would be wasting your time.
The thought hadn't crossed my mind, but now I'm wondering where you're going.
Well then, see you later indeed.
Listen to him. He's still laughing on his way out of the door. You can hear him from a distance. What the heck is that, Iris? What in tarnation? Iris, take that off. That looks dumb, Iris. Come on. Iris. Mickey Mouse looking ass. Jesus, Iris, stop it.
Alright then, Runo.
No. Alright then, Runo, let's get going. I sounded like Harley for a little bit there. That was odd. Oh, Iris, what are you wearing? Yeah, at least I'm not the only one. I got changed to go to the Great Exhibition. You're gonna take me. What? But I was just about to go to the Supreme Court. Oh, well that sounds fun too. You're gonna take me there then. Oh my goodness, Iris, put that away. And I feel oddly threatened. All right, fine, just lower that weapon, would you? Now, of course. And after the Supreme Court, then we'll go see the Great Exhibition. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Just please stop hurting me. Let's examine. What's on over here? What's on Iris's board? There's an achievement if I read everything on Iris's noteboard. Oh, yes, this is where you note ideas down, isn't it, Iris? What's in the melting pot today? The blue carbuncle? Oh my gosh. Iris, this outfit is ridiculous. Yes, it's from a case of theft that Hurley solved ages ago. The theft of a precious stone. A carbuncle is another name for a garnet, you see? Alright, I've always wondered what a carbuncle is. That makes sense. Wait, so is that one Yu-Gi-Oh card just titled Ruby Garnet then? Ruby Carbuncle, right? Carbuncle. Carbuncle. Ruby Carbuncle. Crystal Beast Ruby Carbuncle, yeah. Crystal Beast Ruby Garnet, that's actually kind of lame. That makes no sense, because you got Emerald Tortoise, Amber Mammoth, this is just Ruby Carbuncle. Ruby Garnet, oh, come on. Anyways, I don't know why we had a Yu-Gi-Oh detour. This is why these episodes take forever. I was thinking back to myself, whatever we did the other day with Pikmin, I have no idea how we got there. All I know is I started looking up prices of Pikmin action figures on eBay. I don't even know how that was related. It started off as somewhat tangentially related to the episode. I don't know. I don't know where it went from there. I could obviously go back and watch, but I have no earthly idea how I got to looking up yellow Pikmins on eBay. I think I just need sleep. Especially if it's cut with a rounded top. Oh, really? And this garnet was blue, was it? Well, that's the thing. They're usually red. No blue garnets have ever been discovered. Oh. So who knows what the stolen gemstone actually was? That's the real mystery of the case. A proper Herlock Sholmes conundrum, huh? Alright, that was actually pretty cool. Looks like there's a paper swan in the trash can. That looks like a ruby carbuncle. Ah, all these different pieces of evidence from the cases that Mr. Sholmes has solved are all very interesting. The trouble is, Hurley forgets things so quickly, he never remembers why these things are relevant. The other day, for example, he saw the orange pips that were there and decided to plant them in the garden. Pips? Yes, they've all sprouted now. We have 5 new little plants. Oh, well, I don't know what case they were from, but if Mr. Sholmes can get oranges to grow outside in England, he should change his profession. Secret green thumb, Mr. Sholmes. New location. Yo, Iris, let's go see if we can get the achievement. I might have already missed one. I don't know. There was one time up here we were talking to Sholmes. I don't know if we were able to investigate. For the achievement for unlocking all of these spade shovel debates. Now that Miss Susanto's gone, the shovelers aren't represented to correct me. Maybe I'll have to do it myself. That's not a spade, Mr. Naruhodo, it's a shovel. Nah, so you're a spader, are you, Runo? What, you want to battle it out? Alright, I'm not going to argue with a native English speaker who has some kind of gun. Alright, that was a different text box there. How's this fish tank looking? Look at the prawns and the anemones gently swaying around in the tank. Regular cleaning, some food, and fresh seawater is all they need. And some conversation, of course. Seemed like a lot of effort at first, but it was worth it. I'm starting to be able to tell what they're thinking. Funny to think that so many people in London had aquariums like this once, when they were in vogue. You never expect to find sea anemones in the middle of the capital, and I think I'll have to name them soon. Oh no, Runo's disappeared! What? I expect he's been eaten by Hurley. I think I'd prefer it if you used your imagination more when naming the sea life. That was cute. Alright. Alright. This is why this game takes forever. Let's go visit Lord Strongheart. I don't remember his voice. I think it was generic British voice. This place is so ominous. Alright, Lord Chief Justice. It's been about 6 months now since I was last here, but some things never change, like the sense of foreboding I always seem to feel in this place. Maybe it's because Lord Chief Justice Strongheart's evil. Look at Iris being all cute. I like the overcoat, I don't like the headdress. I don't like it. It looks weird, Iris, take it off. It doesn't seem to be bothering Iris at all, though. She's happily reading over there. Looking all cute. Being a good 10-year-old child. Imagine being 10 and having a degree in medicine. This is wild. Oh, I love this place. I always find so many interesting books here. Of course, I was forgetting that you've been here before. And the time we came here 6 months ago. And then Lord Strongheart yelled at you to get out. And it was kind of awkward. When Susato-san was given the news that she had to return to Japan. No, I understand you wish to speak with me. That sounds like Lord Garadeb, or Mr. Garadeb. Anyways. He has evil theme music. He didn't do anything last game. And it did turn out that Susato's dad wasn't ill and it was a fake reason to get her back to Japan, but that was caused by Susato's dad, not Lord Strongheart. So this man actually has not done anything yet, except just having very suspicious presence. But I still don't trust him. Listen to this music! If that's not evil politician music, I don't know what it is. No, Lord Strongheart, I trust you've been keeping well. Let's see. Since you've arrived and requested an audience, it's been 4 hours, 32 minutes, and 26 seconds. I've kept you waiting a while. My apologies. Oh, no, not at all. I like nothing more than standing around, staring into space. Good to know. Good to know that doesn't appear to bother him at all. Male Strongheart, Lord Chief Justice of London. He's the man who allowed me to start practicing as a defense lawyer when I arrived in Britain as a student. You need only savor the air for a moment in this grand office to understand his preeminent status. As you will be aware, the Great Exhibition of London is now underway at last. We're extremely busy as a result, policing the grounds, guarding the new technologies, dealing with petty crime, and furthermore, as of next month, we shall open the International Forensic Science Symposium. No, I've not heard about that. Investigating authorities from 40 countries around the globe will be taking part, including from your own land. Forensic science is the future. The world must embrace it. As we're the hosting nation, I have much to do, and it is my highest priority. Others must wait for my attention and result, so be it. Well, it's nice to know where I stand. So, you wish to consult with me? Of course, I can very well imagine what this is about. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, my lord. I want to be allowed to start working as a defense lawyer again in court. That's what brought me here today. But actually, there's something else playing on my mind as it happens. I know he hates me because I'm foreign, but how is Barack Obama? I mean, Brock Fenzies. Runo, just take a deep breath and come out with it. actually came here today to ask for your permission. Go on. 6 months ago, my right to work in court as a lawyer was revoked, and I was told to spend my time studying. Obviously, I'm very sorry for what happened, but the thing is, it made me understand what it really means to defend somebody under the rules of a foreign justice system. And I desperately want to have another go. Please, permit me to enter the courtroom again. I know this man was timing me, so I tried to read quickly. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? Oh, here it comes. I'm sure you haven't forgotten your position here, have you? At best, you are a substitute for your compatriot. This was never your intended role. Well, I mean, that's true. The Japanese government actually sent my best friend on this study tour, not me. It should have been Cosmo. He was so determined to bring change to our own justice system at home. That was his calling. Cosmo theme music. I don't want to see this. That's sad. Stop. And if that tragic accident hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here in this office now. Mr. Asogi was my best friend, you see. And that's why I can't leave it unfinished. I have to fulfill his calling for him. His calling, you say? Has it never occurred to you that perhaps you know nothing of his true calling? Sorry? The mission with which that young law student was charged, what do you suppose it really was? What do you mean? Mission? He's not making any sense. Never mind. I've read all the reports you've submitted over the past 6 months. And it's clear to me that you regret your actions and have been studiously obeying your revised instructions. Do you mean? As of this moment, I reinstate your license to practice law here in Great Britain. I still don't trust him. Thank you so much. That's wonderful news, Runo. Thank you, Mickey Mouse. In fact, I believe I have the perfect case to mock your comeback. A curious affair. You'll consider it, I hope. Of course, please tell me more. This man always seems to have really shady stuff for us to do. I don't know. I don't want to just be like, oh, he's evil. But I feel like he's evil. Even though, like I said, he's actually not done anything. I still find it suspicious. The way he handled that first case, it's given me weird vibes ever since. He reminds me of Damon Gant. And this music is very suspicious. Like, he knew that there is no way for us to lose the first case with Mr. McGilded. Breaking out the McGilded voice because I can't use it anymore because he's dead. Very unfortunate. And he's like, well, all you really have to do is show up. There's no way that he's going to be shown proven guilty. It's just the fact that he knows that and he was like perfectly okay with it. I don't know. You described it as a curious affair. Yes, that's right. I believe it was reported in the press. Are you aware that there was a serious accident at the Great Exhibition yesterday? Oh, no. Yes, I read about it. A professor from Germany tried to carry out a crazy experiment. Let me see. How was it described? Super high voltage instantaneous kinesis, I think. Instantaneous kinesis, as in moving things with a click of the fingers? That's right. It's just what my herbal blends need, a dash of devil-may-care. Whatever this serious accident was exactly, it's clearly captured Iris's imagination. It's an unfortunate business. Large explosion engulfed the public experimentation stage and a man lost his life. A certain Mr. Odiousman, an investor and well-known figure in society. A large explosion? A man died? The man responsible for the experiment was Professor Albert Harebrain. He was detained immediately after the incident and is due to appear in court tomorrow. On the charge of murder. What? Murder? If you intend to take on his defense, you should hurry to meet with him at the prison. There is very little time left for you to carry out any kind of investigation. That's good to know, because we're already 40 minutes into this episode, and I feel like I've done nothing, so... The Great Exhibition, a scientific experiment gone wrong, and murder? And I feel out of my depth before I've even started. Still, we've done worse. We should go to the prison straight away then, and try to meet with this German professor. Don't you think? Definitely. Ah, yes. One more thing about the case. There's a connection with our mutual acquaintance, the Reaper. Oh, with Lord Van Zeeks? How? Maybe it'll proc after I click on this one. All sorts of conferences have been taking place around the world to coincide with the Great Exhibition. Next month, the largest and most important of them will take place at last. The International Forensic Science Symposium. It does seem as though criminal investigation needs to embrace scientific methods, doesn't it? Exactly. Ah! Even Iris gets the heebie-jeebies. London, the global epicenter of our culture, science, and wealth, now has a population exceeding 6 million. Sadly, crime in the capital is growing at a similarly startling rate. So it's imperative that we use the latest scientific methods to investigate and resolve cases as efficiently as possible. Which is what's known as forensic science, isn't it? Exactly. The future of policing. Ah! I too would be afraid of a guy that if he did something very imposing, a bunch of birds flew away in the background. Regrettably, however, Britain is currently dragging its feet when it comes to the adoption of forensic methods. Oh dear, that's alarming. Oh dear! Exactly, it's extremely alarming. Ah! Iris, quit screaming. Ah! If I were Her Majesty's Attorney General, you can be sure the numbers of crimes committed and resolved in London would be very different to the current figures. See, I feel like he would just murder people. And I can cite 12 solid arguments and 223 individual reasons to support my claim. Sorry? By way of apology for keeping you waiting earlier, I shall detail everyone now. What? Oh, how fascinating. Iris, we gotta go talk to our defendant, man. Come on, Iris. Iris is like, I want knowledge though, Runo. It all began 15 years ago. I was... Look at that, look at that. Samesies, Runosuke, same, dude. Same. Nah! The fade into the dots. And that more or less sums up my feelings on the matter, in the simplest of terms, of course. Essentially, to formally establish the Forensic Investigation Division within Scotland Yard. That is my mission. Oh, right, yes, that's wonderful. I was listening, 100%. Exactly, wonderful is precisely what it will be. Iris isn't paying attention at all. She's got her nose in another book now. Oh, is it over? Did you learn anything useful? I actually drifted off for the most part. He's surprisingly ardent about forensic science. Are you just not going to tell us about Van Zeeks? How do I present this to you? Oh, that reminds me. Have you seen this? The reports of the overwhelming success of the Great Exhibition, of course. No, not that. The story on the back page. What story? The Reaper attacked. Ah, that. You've enjoyed some victories in court against my #1 prosecutor, have you not? Poor Mr. Reaper. What happened to him? He wasn't killed, was he? I hope not. He's too beautiful to die. There's no need for concern. Lord Van Zeeks will not be so easily dispatched, I assure you. You know, that makes it sound like you sent somebody after him. Probably not. I just don't trust this dude. Can you tell us what happens? I'd really love to know. Very well. If it interests you. It does, strangely. Fortunately, Lord Van Zeeks emerged from the attack unscathed. Street ruffians are no match for that man. He's a very capable fighter. But that's incredible. They were armed with guns. Why was he attacked, though? Do we know? It's related to the events that occurred a month ago. The leader of one of the capital's criminal organizations was indicted and prosecuted by Van Zeeks. But the man was acquitted, and I have no doubt large sums of money were involved behind the scenes. Large sums of money? A deplorable situation. Members of the Joey were bribed, it seems. However, despite winning his freedom, the man in question met a dramatic end yesterday. But you're not suggesting that was the work of the Reaper, surely? The victim's henchmen certainly seemed to think so. He was a man by the name of Asman, Mr. Odiousman. Wait, that was the guy that died. Huh? Did you say Asman? That's the man who died in the big explosion at the Great Exhibition. The shifty dude with the top hat, knew it! Yeah, it's publicly known as an investor, but in reality, the head of a significant criminal organization. Unbelievable. I wonder, could I ask you something, Lord Strongheart? Try me. Why do you use Lord Van Zeeks as a prosecutor? All the criminals who manage to get off in court then meet with mysterious ends outside the courtroom. And fearful of that fate, they seek to strike at Lord Van Zeek first. I know there's no evidence that he actually is the Reaper in that sense, but still, something's clearly going on here. And I have Van Zeek's work for the prosecution service for two reasons. Firstly, the man is the best prosecutor in the capital, bar none. And secondly, any deaths of criminals that have occurred outside the courtroom following his trials are nothing to do with him. That's what I'm saying. This dude is up to something. This dude wants a clean city at any cost. I don't trust him. But that doesn't make sense. How can you explain the ways so many have died if not by someone's hand? Because I did it and blamed it on the curse of the Reaper. Van Zeeks may have earned himself the moniker of the Reaper, but he is no killer, so he will continue to prosecute on behalf of the Crown. Unless he wishes otherwise, of course. Well, I must be leaving for my next engagement. I'm already 11 hours and 16 minutes late. My colleagues may be starting to fidget. 11 hours late? That's quite something. That meeting had already started when I arrived back here for this engagement with you. So lateness was inevitable. Time stops for no man. And I'm sure it stopped for me during those 12 solid arguments and 223 reasons. Oh yes, where would I find Lord Van Zeeks now? I would assume he's at his office. Right, so I'll go and ask him about the attack in person, and I want to get this straight from the horse's mouth. Ooh, we're gonna see full-body Van Zeeks interactions. Ooh. Away with you now. I'm leaving Professor Hairbrain's defense entirely in your hands. Of course, yes. Thank you very much, my lord. Alright. Alright. Ooh, prosecutor's office! I wanna go hang out with Van Zeeks! Let's go hang out with the vampire! Oh, he's into miniatures, that's cute. Ah, he's got his stock of chalices! Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. He's got some backup chalices for when he breaks them. Oh, so this is the legendary Reaper's office? Yes, it appears so. Surprising that we could just walk in here. Brr, it sends a chill down your spine, doesn't it? What an amazingly deathly atmosphere. Oh, is that... That hooded figure was so still I hadn't noticed his or her presence. I wonder who it is. What are you doing here? Ah! Hello. We came to ask if you're okay. He's as unwelcoming as I thought it'd be. Actually, maybe even more so. Oh, I'm glad to see you're well. I am. So, who's the person over by the wall being punished for something or other? No punishment is taking place here. Oh. That's my apprentice. And he's sitting there of his own free will. I didn't know you had an apprentice. It must be the same person who was pictured in the newspaper. He is very able in combat, a requisite skill for anyone under my tutelage. Are you referring to the attack on the Reaper that was reported in the papers? The Reaper? I'd be interested to know the Reaper's true identity myself. Assuming, that is, such a fabled fiend genuinely inhabits our great courtrooms. Bro, they're talking about you. Stop being handsome, that's illegal. Lord Strongheart said that the assault last night was some sort of revenge attack? True. Carried out by henchmen of Odiousman's criminal organization. The investigation meant their arrests were imminent. Presumably some hope to kill me before that happens. Odiousman. He's always masqueraded as one of London's most powerful financiers, a global investor. But his enormous wealth came to him by underhand means, via his criminal activities. And he used that money to buy himself a verdict of not guilty when he found himself in court, didn't he? Being prosecuted by you, Mr. Reaper. But the man got his comeuppance in the end. Yesterday, in fact, in extraordinary circumstances, it was a most unusual cause of death. I know about that. It was super high voltage instantaneous kinesis gone wrong. Mr. Osmond died when the demonstration on the public experimentation stage ended in an enormous explosion. Correct. And you think I have some kind of divine ability to cause an accident like that to happen, do you? Well, no. That does seem a little far-fetched. If this man really is the fabled Reaper, then he has to be innocent of this particular death, at least. It's strange how this worked out, isn't it, Runo? I mean, what with you taking on the professor's defense for the trial tomorrow? What? You're going to be defending him? Oh, yes, that's right. Though I barely know the man's name yet, to be honest. Albert. Albert Hairbrain. That's right. Do you know him by any chance? Of course. I like how this is just a surprisingly chill conversation. Just walk into his office, be like, yo, that dude in the corner's weird. And he's like, why are you here? Be like, I just stopped by. Yo, what's that weirdo in the corner doing? And then they just start talking about this. Like, you could tell he doesn't want us here, but he's also, like, interested. That's also just his face, though. He's like, I hate you, but what's up? And of course. He's a contemporary of mine. We were at university together. You're... What? Wait? Your contemporary? And I understood that Professor Hairbrain was from Germany, though. Hairbrain's from a respectable British family. After graduating from the University of London, he moved to Germany to carry out research, that's all. So you were students together? I was in the Faculty of Law, of course, and he in Science, so our paths rarely crossed. But curiously, we got along, though I've not met him since my university days. And I certainly didn't expect our next encounter to take this form. And with you, of all people, representing him. If I make it out of this office alive. He's actually been charged with murder, it seems. Yes, I know, because the prosecution is me. By you? But you made it sound as if you and the professor had been friends. We are friends, it's true. Then why would you do this? If the Reaper is the prosecutor, there's nothing anyone can do to save him. He's doomed. He's like, little girl, I'm just trying to do my job. What's Lord Van Zeek's thinking? He's thinking, good as that Japanese guy I hate because he somehow manages to defeat me in court every time with some BS excuse to make it that the defendant's actually innocent. What do you mean by what you said before? If you'd like to know the Reaper's true identity, does that mean I'm a crown prosecutor and immortal like any other? I'm no demigod. But they've all died, haven't they? The people you prosecuted, I mean. Ginny's not dead yet, Iris. Ginny's not dead, Iris. Neither is Natsume, so I don't know. We're actually winning here, 2-1. And Mr. McGill did kick the bucket, but the other two are still okay, to our knowledge. Whether or not the trial ended in a conviction or an acquittal. Those I prosecute are the vilest wretches of our society. People who without question deserve to be found guilty. And the world is a better place without them. But that's not true of Mr. Natsume, for example. He wasn't a vile wretch at all. Nor was Ginny. In fact, she's ever so hard-working now. I can't deny that since I encountered you, things have taken a turn. But the point is this. If any of those vile wretches that escaped justice subsequently died in mysterious circumstances, it was at the hand of their own kind. It's not my work. Lord Strongheart said the same. He believes you're not involved in any way. But you were attacked by those ruffians because they believe it's true. The fact is, since people started to call me the Reaper of the Bailey, the number of serious crimes in the capital has dropped substantially. It's a good intimidation tactic, I see. Oh. It would appear that even the most hardened criminals can be made fearful for their lives. Do you mean to say... I mean to say that if my pseudonym serves a useful purpose, I adopt it gladly and with honor. But it's putting you in danger! You could be killed! If that is my fate, let God decide. Oh my goodness, soft ooh boy returns.
I will gladly give myself if it means that the crime goes down. If that is my fate, then let God proceed as he will.
Oh my goodness. Lord Van Zeeks! Stop being a soft boy. I want to look at stuff in here. I'm gonna touch everything in your office, dude. Look at that fine collection of hollowed chalices and bottles neatly lined up there. My hollowed bottles are filled with the essence of the finest grapes from the finest vineyards I visit. And I personally oversee these chalices being made by the finest crystal craftsmen in the world. And yet you throw them around in court like they were worthless.
Yes, because this imbecile is so unimaginably and repeatedly wide of the mark sometimes.
Oh?
Before you open your mouth next time, you should consider the poor artisans whose work you defile.
So, it's my fault? Silly me, how could I have ever thought otherwise?
Look at that chess set.
Lord Van Zeeks' desk, look, it's so stylish. And that's a marble chess set beside it. Chess? That's the Western version of our Japanese shogi game, isn't it? You know, I'm actually quite good at shogi problems. Oh, really? You'd probably like chess problems in that case. I'd love to challenge Lord Van Zeek sometime. Ooh, that'd be a cool mini-game. To a bout of shogi problems. If you only really want to challenge yourself, you can always do that on your own at home. Alright. Yo, what is that? Yo, is that a giant portrait of Van Zeek's? And that portrait really dominates the room, doesn't it? Oh my goodness. It's a very majestic outfit and pose, but sadly, whoever painted it didn't do a very good job of capturing Lord Van Zeek's facial features. Yes, you're right. I mean, it's not far off, but the artist has exaggerated the subject's handsomeness, I think. Oh, that reminds me. I heard Emperor Napoleon of France ordered artists to make him look more attractive when they painted him. How vain. That's really not an attractive quality in a person, is it? That portrait does not depict me. Surely that's immediately obvious. Oh, then who is it? Now let's look at your miniatures. Van Zeke's out here playing Warhammer 40K in his office. Oh, look, it's a scale model of the Great Exhibition Showground. That's amazing. I wonder why it's here. Perhaps he made it to take his mind off the sadness of being too busy to attend in person? Or perhaps he's too embarrassed to queue up for a ticket. Surely it's obvious that I'm using it as an investigative aid. Ah! You Nipponese have no business painting others as overly reserved. And I really didn't think he'd overhear that. I mean, obviously he's following you around, watching you poke around with stuff in his office. Renosuke. I don't know why you'd think differently. What's this weird dude in the corner? There's a lot of barrels of wine, dude. Van Zeke, you want to talk to somebody about that? Look at all those ancient casks lining the wall there. Casks in the Reaper's chamber. Or are they caskets? You don't think all those people who escaped conviction in courts are lying inside them, dead, do you? What ridiculous notions are going through your head, man? This is my collection of fine vintages. Oh, yes, of course. Thank you for clearing that up. Runo and I were just musing to ourselves. Don't mind us, Mr. Reaper. I wouldn't if you hadn't invited yourselves to my office to talk nonsense within my earshot. This is so wholesome. Alright, what's up with you? Saving the best for last. What's up, man? It really looks like a punishment to me. Now, I've never seen someone sitting like that before. He hasn't moved the muscles since we arrived. Do you think perhaps he's dead? Oh my goodness. If he was dead, Runo, he wouldn't be sitting up, would he? Well, anyway, dead or alive, he's not overly approachable, is he? I don't think he's going to talk to us. He's not dead. Alright, so he's not talking to us. Alright, cool. Why are there bats? Ah! Whoa! They were bats! Yes, the Reaper's familiars, I expect. But what about the mute man in the dark cloak? I thought he was the familiar. Just not the flying kind. He must be a dear friend of Mr. Reaper, then. I think the familiar idea is more likely. Scary, though, either way. Bro, why do you have bats in your office? Van Zeke's is wild, dude. Wild. Wild. Alright. Hello. Present. Hey, bro, look at this newspaper. Lord Van Zeke's about the article in this paper. No, yes, it seems there was a reporter nearby when that little skirmish took place. And I had no idea I'd been photographed. It was careless of me. It looks as though it was taken after the people who attacked you right away, though. Rest assured, the police have already apprehended every last one of them. But there's someone else fighting alongside you, it seems. And I think it's the same man who's sitting over there as we speak, isn't it? As I mentioned already, he's my apprentice. Can I be your apprentice? Perhaps you could tell us a little more about him? He's in my tutelage to become a prosecutor. So you could say he's my apprentice, I suppose. Ah, like you are to Hurley then, Runo. I don't remember taking an apprenticeship with a great detective. He's currently compiling a report about last night's attack. It looks like he's wearing some kind of mask. On Lord Strongheart's orders. Nobody knows the man's face, or indeed his identity. See? Lord Strongheart literally gave Van Zeke's an assassin. He's suspicious, dude. He's suspicious. But why would you agree to take on such a clearly suspicious individual? Lord Strongheart's orders again. He's not one for meaningless follies. There will be a good reason for his actions. I hope you're right. He literally gave you an assassin. That is a very untrustworthy looking guy. Hello, random apprentice. Ah! The task is complete. Good. In that case, you can collate all the briefs. Why does he look like Sholmes? Oddly. See the little thing there. Nice to meet you! Back to work again. That was really strange, though. I've never met the man before. Didn't even know he existed, and yet somehow it didn't feel like our first encounter. Don't bother trying to converse with him. He says nothing to anybody from outside this office. Lord Strongheart has strictly forbidden it. Oh, I see. Why are you so interested in my apprentice, anyway? Oh, no, I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to. The way he stood there so casually, yet with that flawless posture. It couldn't be. Aw, yes, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. Oh, what's that? That Nipponese man, is he faring well? Sorry? The one arrested twice in succession 6 months ago, with the stoop, and the mustache, and the jitters. Ah, Mr. Natsume, you mean? I'm not sure. He'd be very pleased to find out you identified him from that list, Bruno. He's fine, thank you. In fact, I received a letter from him by international post only the other day. I see. Well, I think we can end our discussion there, don't you? There's little time left before tomorrow's trial. I advise you to spend it investigating the case. Yes, thank you for the advice, and for the conversation. See what I'm saying? He's like secretly soft. He's like, bro, you gotta go, the prison's closing. You know, you got your case tomorrow, bro. I got you. I hate you, but I got you. Soft Ulu boy returns. And I can't believe he's asking after Soseki-san. And he's asking about how Soseki-san's doing. After a Nipponese. And I'm not sure whether to feel happy about that or worried. I never imagined that Mr. Reaper would be friends with a mad scientist, did you? That's a turn up for the books. A mad scientist? Ah, you mean Professor Hairbrain? Yes, it might be worth quizzing the professor about his relationship with Lord Van Zeeks, I think. Ooh, what? It's relationship? No. Who said that? Back to the intimidating music. Alright, let's move. Let's go to the prison. Yeah. The warden said cell 11. That's this one. Oh, there's someone curled up in a ball in the back corner, look. What's his name again? Professor Albert Hairbrain, wasn't it? Excuse me, Professor Hairbrain. Yeah? Who are you? I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I'm a defense lawyer. A lawyer? Ah, was it something I said? Ah, a lawyer, you say? Would you be here? About the experiment? Are you going to defend my hypothesis? Your hypothesis? Sorry, I don't speak science. Yesterday's demonstration. That magnificent demonstration was an out-and-out success by anyone's calculations. But despite that, no one listens. No lawyer believes in the science. When it's explained, they all leave at high velocity. Huh? Now's probably not a good time to mention that your zeal made my concentration leave for a while, too. You mentioned the demonstration yesterday. The papers have called it a spectacular failure. After all, a man died in the explosion, didn't he? Ah. Yes, you could interpret the results that way if you really wanted to. Well, I suppose in the strictest sense, the experiment was a failure, but at the same time, it was a great success. You've lost me. I saw with my own eyes right there in front of me. Mr. Odiousman was spontaneously disassembled. Until then, everything was going exactly as my calculations had predicted. At that point, it should have been beamed to the crystal tower by instantaneous kinesis. However, the machine exploded and Mr. Odiousman, in fact, perished. Yes, I can't deny that part of the experiment was a failure. So what you're really saying is the large explosion that killed Mr. Odiousman was an accident, correct? But the bigwigs had you arrested on suspicion of murder. That was responsible for a man's death. That is the immutable truth here. And for that, I wish to be punished. At once. But... murder? Never in a million years. It was an accident. Simply an accident. I see. Hurley and I were talking this morning, you know. He said the situation would change completely depending on whether it was treated as an accident or murder. How exactly? Well, if it really was an accident, then the professor's machine would be kept in protective custody. On what grounds? Ah, yes, it's newly established here in Britain. The Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. That one passed me by. But if the case is treated as murder, then they'll say my machine was the murder weapon, and they'll be able to pore over it as much as they like. If they examine it in detail, they'll find out how it's made, and then they'll be able to copy my idea. My precious hypothesis will be stolen. The machine must be protected from that at all costs. That's why it's imperative this whole incident is shown to have been an accident in tomorrow's trial. Ah, I see now. That's what you're worried about, dude? They're going to steal my hypothesis. Yes, and you'd also be executed. Let's learn about instantaneous kinesis. So in short, there was a terrible accident at the Great Exhibition Showground yesterday. Yes, or rather no, the devil is in the details. Strictly speaking, there was a terrible explosion. Sounds the same to me. You were demonstrating super high voltage instantaneous kinesis, weren't you? How fascinating. Humans, like all matter, are made up of particles that are held together by electrical bonds. So it must be possible using a sufficiently high voltage to break those bonds and beam the particles through space. That's it in a nutshell. That's my idea, you see? That's my amazing hypothesis. Gosh, that's unimaginably high-level science. Oh, but dare to imagine it! Dare to dream of such incredible technology! Just think, one moment I could be here in this cell, and the next, I could be at the Great Exhibition again. Well, yes, that would be incredible. And the next, in the mere blink of an eye, that could be at the Great Parisian Theatre, say. The possibilities are endless. The whole of our vast planet would be within reach. So no more hiding in wardrobes on rocky seas for 50 days. I don't really see it like that. What do you mean, Iris? Well, if you could travel anywhere in the world instantly, the planet wouldn't really seem vast anymore, would it? I think it would feel like it had shrunk. My word, that's exactly right. What are the implications? What does this mean? Oops, that's got Professor Bunnybrain really worried by the look of it. Clearly, this is yet another case of just because you can doesn't mean you should, I suppose. The point is, my calculations are flawless, the science works. But without a practical demonstration, it means nothing. And that's always the fly in the ointment. Because practical demonstrations cost a lot of money. Money that young scientists like you don't have. That's exactly it, yes. Hurley's always complaining about it. He says the government should invest more in science. Well, anyway, I bumped to him at the right time. And I met the well-known investor, Mr. Odiousman. And the victim who died in yesterday's terrible accident, you mean? So we can talk about the victim first. The full name of the man who died in yesterday is... Odiousman. Mr. Esman. Odiousman. Odiousman. Okay, I figured it out. I figured it out. I figured it out! Mr. Odiousman. The puns. The full name of the man who died in yesterday's accident was Mr. Odiousman, wasn't it? What exactly was your relationship with the man? He first visited me in my laboratory in Germany a year ago now. He said he wanted to invest in my immaculate hypothesis. I would thank my lucky stars. I see. So you hadn't really known each other until then. Money for scientific research? I'm so envious. As far as I was concerned, the man was an angel. Oh, really? An archangel, even? He was prepared to fund a practical demonstration of my hypothesis for presentation at the Great Exhibition. And if that went well, I could expect additional financial support for my research from the British government. Mr. Esman provided me with money and an exceptional engineer. He produced a machine to my precise specifications. But then your dreams were blown to dust in one enormous explosion. As you can see, I owed everything to Mr. Esman. And I would never, ever have thought of taking the man's life. Well, he seems genuine enough. I don't think he's lying. Now let's talk about you and Mr. Van Zeeks in college, bruh, hanging out. I understand Lord Van Zeeks is a friend of yours from your university days? Yes, that's right. He was studying law whilst I was studying science. What was he like back then? A good question. Unassuming, gentlemanly, an all-around nice fellow, really. Sorry, I think you misheard me. I said Lord Van Zeeks. I'm talking about the cold-hearted, merciless prosecutor Brock Van Zeeks. What was he like when he was at university? Talk about a leading question, Bruno. As I said, an unassuming and extremely pleasant gentleman. And after all, he is the little darling of the Van Zeeks family with all its great aristocratic origins. I didn't realize he had quite such noble blood. Little darling? I said. Soft. Ooh. Boy. It was a bit of a shock when I came back to Britain and learnt what he'd become. The Reaper of the Bailey, no less. Yes, that's right. I did hear, though, that there was a very big event in his life that completely changed him after graduation. Really? What sort of event? I heard he got betrayed by Japanese and now he hates them all. I'm sorry, but I don't know anymore. And I wasn't in the country at the time. I was in Germany already. Oh, yes, of course. If he's heard all about the Reaper, I really don't have the heart to tell him that Lord Van Zeeks will be the prosecutor at court tomorrow. So, Professor, let me just make absolutely sure I've understood you properly. The huge explosion that occurred yesterday, that was an accident, you're saying? You had no intent to harm the victim, who was in fact the sole investor in your work, is that correct? As correct as 2 squared is 4, I swear it! Yes, it's true that the man perished in the machine of my invention. So I know that I'm far from blameless in all this, but still, I would never use my discoveries, my inventions, to take a person's life, not in a centillion years. I'm a man of science, that's all I know. You have to believe me, please. Do you believe me? Do you believe in my hypothesis? Science is the pursuit of truth, you know. I've always believed that all my life. I'm afraid I don't know much about science, or your theories, but I do believe you, and I will fight to prove your innocence with all my might. I'm a man of the law, it's all I know. You have to believe me, please. When I went to live in Germany after I graduated, I learned something very important. Nationality, class, lineage, none of that matters. As long as you try your hardest, you can achieve anything. Thank you for that, Professor. And I thank you in advance for defending me tomorrow in court. All right, Runo. It's time. Time to visit the Great Exhibition. Sorry? Well, that's where the incident happened, isn't it? Iris just wants to go to the Great Exhibition. Yes, I suppose that's true. It's time to investigate at last. We got everything, right? Yeah. Going to the experimentation stage. This way to the exhibition. Oh, what's that over there? We're at their foot at the Crystal Tower. Ugh. The showgrounds are a little too big for my liking. We've been walking around in dense crowds for 2 hours now, and I've felt myself swooning 3 times. There are a lot of people, aren't there? I've almost been trodden on 3 times, too. Be careful, won't you, Iris? Don't let go of my hands. Aww. Just walk around the exhibition being cute. Move over, Sholmes. Ryunosuke is Iris' new dad. Alright, we finally made it through the throngs, though, by the look of it. Here we are, underneath the public experimentation stage where the explosion happened yesterday. What's that? And I can hear voices from up on the stage. Sounds like an argument. Ooh. Right, I've had it with you this time. I'm warning you, I'll arrest you in a minute. Oh yeah? Go on then, Spectre, give it a shot. You ain't got no evidence and you know it. Wait, I know those voices. What? You've got a cheeky little mouth on you, young lady, but a night in the cells will teach you some manners. Just try it, I dare you. You want that bag of chips rammed down your throat? Get him, Gina, get him. Yoo-hoo, Gregsy, what are you doing up there? This man ran down here. Ah! Ah! It's you! Here! You're here! Here you are, you here! Your ladyship! How are you, your ladyship? I do hope you're well, your ladyship. Does that make her 3 times a lady? I'm not well at all. It's far too busy everywhere. I wanted to ride in a balloon, but there was a 3-hour queue. Unbelievable! I'll go and have a word for you at once, your ladyship. You'll be flying as high as a kite in no time once I pull some strings for you. Tobias Gregson, an inspector at Scotland Yard, stopped making that motion. And until recently, he was suspended from duty, but it would appear he's back in action now. He is actually quite well known, appearing as he does in the adventures of Herlock Sholmes. And for that reason, he can't say a word wrong to the story's author, Iris. But there are limits, surely, or there should be. What's it, Sunshine? Sorry. What gives then? Don't tell me you're on this case! Yes, I'm acting for the defense. So we're here to investigate. Dear me, that's the situation, is it? Is it really that troubling? Measly 5 bob, is that all you got? You're a lawyer, ain't you? You could stand to carry a bit more copper around your pockets, Mr. Naruto. What? Hey, that's my last bit of spending money, that is. It's mine now. What you gonna do about it? You can have it back, but I'll have to charge you for all the bother. 3 bob. This is Gina Lastron, a pickpocket or diver born and bred in the East End of London. In the case that led to my own suspension 6 months ago. This is the young girl I was defending in court. What's your problem, eh, Odo? Diver, pickpocket, what's with all the name calling? You want a bag of chips round down your throat and all, do you? I thought you were proud to be a diver, Gina. You were just arguing with Inspector Gregson about it, weren't you? I assumed you'd been up to your usual tricks here at the showground. That ain't no way to talk to a lady, Odo. Half a year's a long time. People can change. I'm an apprentice now, learning to be a Scotland Yard detective. so you'll have to call me what everyone else does. It's Inspector Lestrade now. Character development. Inspector? That badge is homemade, surely. The inspector part isn't entirely accurate. No one calls her that. For what it's worth, anyway. Investigating is off the cards for all of us. What's that supposed to mean? Right, well, I'll be back up top. You hold the fort down here, all right? Right, sir. This is weird. This raises a lot of questions. It was 8 months ago now that I first encountered Gina, in connection with a case I was working on. At the time, she was living in the East End with a group of other orphans. She helped all of them survive by pickpocketing, but then she got embroiled in a murder. I had a lot of time to think in prison, and realized I couldn't go on like I was. The diving weren't working out. Oh, I'm so pleased to hear it, Ginny. Well done. So, you went from being a pickpocket to a detective? You got it. Good, innit? Inspector Lestrade sounds like something out of a book, eh? Talk about a sea change. And then there's Iris's old man to think about. Iris's father, you mean? Yeah, promised her, didn't I? I said I'd get all the police forces around the world to pull out all the stops looking for him. It's a small promise then, nothing serious. Oh, Jenny, you're so sweet. So anyway, that's how I come in and go for the test at Scotland Yard. Only trouble is, I don't read so well, do I? Just a small problem, nothing serious. And that's when Hurley approached Gregson and asked for help. So the inspector said he'd take full responsibility for Ginny and made her a sort of apprentice. That was very magnanimous of Inspector Gregson, and brave. Well, you know Hurley. He enjoys finding ways to make people do what he wants. The great detective likes digging for dirt, in other words. So, the long and short of it is, if you got questions about the case, you can ask Inspector Lestrade. Right then, Inspector. Actually, there's still a big mystery surrounding Gina, isn't there? Oh, what, Bruno, what? Well, 6 months ago, Gina was the defendant in a trial prosecuted by the Reaper. In a trial in which she was found not guilty, and yet here she is still. Come on, you're not still on about that, are you? The Legend of the Reaper, whatever it's called. Cool, you don't have to worry, although. I didn't half worry, there probably wouldn't be a whole lot of you left. Like I told you before, isn't it? The Reaper's kinda like I'm upstairs, so he knows what I'm like on the inside, that I ain't really done nothing wrong. Nothing wrong might be stretching a point. What about Mr. Natsume in Japan? He's perfectly fine, isn't he? Well, that's true. Perhaps the Reaper is more discerning than I thought. Exactly, so I ain't worried. I'm totally fine. It's good, good to hear. Cool, it was out of this world, was. The brainy bloke pulled a bunch of levers on his machine and suddenly it started billowing smoke. Then it just went pop. I ain't seen a better experiment here yet. Sorry. You mean you saw it, Ginny? With your own eyes? Yeah, of course. The boss is in charge here, ain't he? Keeping everything running smooth, I mean. And the boss being Inspector Gregson, I suppose. That's going to take some getting used to. So all I have to say is that I'm on duty and I can do whatever I want to. Get this, I was up in one of them flying balloons when it happened, watching it from above. No, you're so lucky, Ginny. Maybe I should join Scotland Yard, too. Yeah, do it. You know how to put the boss in his place already, right, Iris? You have no trouble at all. Then it's settled. When do I start? No, you can't join Scotland Yard, Iris. We'll see. Anyway, what I don't understand is this. If the machine exploded so spectacularly, how can Professor Bunnybrain still be claiming that his experiment was a success? Oh, right. Well, it was a success. In a way. It was. How could it have been? And the guy probably just disappeared. Surely after the whole machine blew up, no one could call the experiment a success. And look at that autosave. What was that all about? Like I said, it did sort of work. I mean, yeah, there was a load of smoke in that whopping great bang. But where do you think they found the victim's body, eh? In the crystal tower over there? Ooh, what? In the tower? No way, it actually yeeted him into the tower. That's crazy. This thing worked. Spontaneous Kinesis. You can see for yourself, can't you? Up there above the scaffold. Oh, where all the glass is broken, you mean? Yeah, the cage what the victim got into to start with. Really did get beamed through the air, whatever, and landed all the way over there. So, you see, did kind of work, didn't it? What? I don't believe it. I mean, I don't get the ins and out of it, but anything's possible, right? With science. Oh, I'll tell you what, you can have this. It's a plan of the experiment they drew up at the yard. Are you sure? Yeah, go on. I had 3 bobs off you before, so fair's fair. Yeah, so I didn't actually give that to you, did I? Alright, it's in the court record. We gotta look at the court record. Alright. We got beams into the tower. Alright, there's some balloons up. Alright, Ginny, about the investigation. Something Inspector Gregson said before seemed a little strange. For what it's worth, anyway, investigating is off the cards for all of us. Yes, naughty old Gregsy ran off after that without explaining himself. Alright, The boss said no one's allowed to investigate that weird machine what blew up yesterday. Well, that's not fair. We're representing the defendant. In that case, could you at least tell us what you've learned from your investigations? Nah, you're not getting it. We ain't allowed to investigate neither. Why? What the boss call them again? The forensic investigation team, I think. Anyway, apart from them lot, no one's allowed to lay a finger on the scene. Bit funny, isn't it? So even Scotland Yard's own detectives can't investigate. Yes, I've never heard something like that before. I thought I could have again done the quiet though, but the boss caught me at it. You probably heard him giving me an earful about it before from down here, didn't you? It's not bleeding fair. And I think you're giving him as much as an earful back as I remember it. Yeah, well, sometimes I think it's all them chips what make him so stubborn. You say something to him, Odo. Go on, see if you can get through to him. He's up on the platform above us, is he? Where the machine that exploded is. We can try, can't we, Bruno? Gregsy will listen to us. Alright, let's see. And click on stuff. The Crystal Tower. It's certainly an apt name. It was built to be the focal point of the exhibition, and it definitely is, being so tall and with all that glass. I can't imagine a building like this ever being erected in Japan. About the Tokyo Tower. There are a lot of exhibits inside the tower as well, apparently. Of course, there's an observation deck, but there's also an art gallery, a zoo, and a museum. But I heard you have to queue for 3 hours just to get through the doors. Well, at the moment, the shattered glass from the failed experiment may well be the biggest draw. Thanks to that accident, the whole tower is shut. Suddenly, it's not the Crystal Tower anymore, but the Crystal Glass Shower. Apparently, everyone's taken to the skies now to look down on the disaster area from above instead. But there's a 3-hour queue to go up in a balloon now. Londoners must be very patient people. Ooh. Investigate up. That's where the cove ended up after his instant kinesis, or whatever they called it. Dead, of course. And yet they're calling the experiment a success. What's the wooden scaffold up there for? The coppers, our lads, set that up after the incident happened. To get the body down, I think. Don't know, really. Didn't you help to erect the scaffold then? Nah, lookout duty's more my thing. Wandering around the exhibition and keeping a lookout for the fun stuff. Mind Gregson doesn't hear you saying that, or he'll give you the boot. It's incredible, though, isn't it? I mean, could the victim really have bridged that gap by some sort of invisible kinesis? That is pretty wild. Yeah, but what's this thing? Ah! Looks as though somebody dropped something behind the tree just here. Dropped or hid? What is this? Some part of the machine that exploded? Maybe. It could have fallen from the platform above in the blast, perhaps. What's going on here? Oh, nothing. I think I'll hang on to this just in case. Alright. What's this? What? Oh, look, what's this? A ripped piece of cloth? It's not like any of the fabric I've seen before. And it's very thick and stiff. It looks extremely durable. It's canvas, I think, with some sort of rubber backing. And the edges appear to be a bit charred as well. Maybe that means it had something to do with the explosion. Let's make a note of it while Jenny's mid-yawn. We still investigating? There's some stuff over here. For some reason, the ground is damaged in this spot. Look. Almost as if there was a fire here or something. Yes, if you look closely, there's some scattered ash and burnt embers, too. Well, I suppose there was a big explosion just above here. People probably wouldn't bat an eyelid at a small fire like this would have been. Now, I'm not sure we English are quite that laid back, Runo. This platform must have been set up for the experiment, I suppose. It's very high up. About 30 feet above the ground, apparently. That's what a policeman I just spoke to said. And I don't really understand feet very well. We don't use them in Japan. Oh yeah, sorry, it's about 9 meters. But soon y'all have been in London a year, Runo. It's time you get used to our measurements. Yes, well, this thing is so tall, the spectators at the front would just have seen a wall and nothing else. They probably thought they'd secure the best spot to watch from, only to be disappointed. There's a saying in Japan, the darkest spot is right under the lighthouse. And I feel like it probably applies here. Alright, I think we clicked on everything. These dudes. Alright, let's look at the court record. We click on you. Why does this look like a harpoon? Nah, there's some sort of lever here. Because it is. What the? What is this? It looks like a cross between a bow and a gun. I think it's probably used for the same thing, too. That's crossbow. Alright. Just randomly found a crossbow at the scene of the crime. Yeah, why does this look like blood? It looks like layers of thick canvas with a thick rubber lining of sorts. I've never seen anything like it before. But applying Mr. Sholmes' methods, you might deduce it was part of a raincoat worn by someone who really, really didn't want to get wet. And the charring must have occurred when the person was struck by lightning. Or maybe not. That sounds very Sholmesy, to be honest. Alright, well. Yo, Gina, we found a crossbow. Gina, would you take a look at... Oh, where did it go? You ain't looking for this, Odo? Why did you do that? I wonder if you've got anything else to show me, eh? What you reckon? Give that back first, please. Alright, Gina, what about this one? Gina, we found something weird. Alright. I stole it. Yeah. What you gonna do about it, eh? What? 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 Alright. I like her outfit. I like her new outfit. Doo-doo-doo-doo. I wonder what we should do now. This room is so dark. Mr. Reaper's eyesight will suffer terribly if he's not careful. Let's go talk to, Why are you just standing so much like that, so imposingly? What the heck? We can't even talk to him. He's like, get away from me. Hello. Lord Van Zeeks. I think he's ignoring you, Runo. The prosecution and defense should avoid speaking outside of the courtroom as a rule. So if anyone is being rude here, it's most certainly the man in black there standing before us. Oh, I see. Well, thank you for setting the record straight. Did you see that? He spoke to me, Runo. Oh my goodness, Iris is literally me right now. Oh my god, he talked to us? Oh my god, did you see that, Runo? Lord Van Zeeks talked to me. Oh my god. So, Lord Van Zeeks, have you managed to visit the Great Exhibition yet? He's not gonna talk to you. He's definitely ignoring you. Right, no niceties either, then. Why are you standing like that? He has definitely thrown hands with Sholmes. Speaking of... Man's gone! Man's gone! So is Sholmes a secret assassin trained by Lord Strongheart? Is that why he's depressed all the time? Because he actually has to kill people? Hey, do you know what this crossbow is? He's not here. Alright. Hey, Lord Chief Justice, you seen this crossbow? Hey, Sholmes! Hey, Sholmes! Hello? Knock, knock. Alright. Let's talk to Iris. What should we do, Iris? I'm stuck. I'm so excited about the prospect of Naruhodo's Anything Consultancy opening for business again. That's not what it's called. It's called Naruhodo's Legal Consultancy. And I've done a lot of study in these past 6 months, reading law text and judicial precedents. I'm sure I'm a better lawyer now. And I can't wait to start practicing again. Nothing's changed in here at all, though, has it? It's as though time has stood still in here since Susie went back to Japan. And I wanted to keep it ready for Mrs. Sato in case she was able to return to Britain at any point. So I've just left everything the way it was. Oh, I see. Right. And there was me thinking it's because of the way you are, Runo. You know, never bothering to tidy up, I mean. Iris, this isn't this time or the place to bring up my tidiness, or lack of it. Alright, that was not helpful. Huh. Alright, you think there has to be something we missed over here? Whatever's gonna... No. Alright, whatever's gonna get Gregson to talk to us here. Right, there's no people. There's no other people we found that we could talk to. I went to harass Van Zeeks. Maybe I missed something in the examination? Oh. These stairs obviously lead to the stage above. We should go up there and investigate the exact spot where the experiment was being conducted. Allie Smallbrain. I knew it. I knew it. That's okay. We got to go harass Van Zeeks in the meantime. This doesn't look safe down here, whatever that is. Alright, we're on the stage. So that's it. Is it? The machine that blew up. Ooh, it must have been a magnificent explosion. And I've seen my fair share. You've seen things like this before, you mean? Of course, Hurley's always doing experiments that end in a bang. In fact, his own words, explosions are the very essence of chemistry. Ah, that might explain the smell of burning that frequently comes wafting up the stairs. One time, he made something that exploded with such force it took the roof off the building. I wish you'd been there to see it, Runo. And it's hard to get too excited about that, given that I now live in the roof. Well, anyway, that's enough about that. Time to investigate. Oh, look, Inspector Gregson is over there. He seems to be deep in thought about something, whilst eyeing up the machine carefully. Really? He just looks as confused to me. We can talk to Gregson first, that way he doesn't yell at us anytime we click on something. It ripped itself apart magnificently, didn't it? Magnificently and mercilessly. So someone stands in the middle of the machine to be disassembled and then beamed through the air. Yes, beamed. Not blasted. That's the point. Yes, that part's crucial, really. Is something like that even possible, though, Iris? Oh, Runo, I'm just a child. How should I know? A child when it suits you, you mean? From what I can tell, I think if you were to pull this lever here... Stop! Don't touch that! Ah ha ha, that was practically instantaneous kinesis the way you just flew over it just now, Gregsy. Please, your ladyship. I didn't mean to startle you, but I can't let you touch anything up here. So sorry, you can have some of my latest special blend to make up for it. Ah, wonderful! This stuff really is wonderful! And it's just like old times, this is. Gregson the Simp. We're representing Professor Hairbrain in court tomorrow, Inspector. So we should be allowed to examine the scene. Ah, listen, Sunshine! Even I'm not allowed to touch anything up here! It's all that blasted Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act to blame! It's driving me potty! No, yes, that's Special Dispensation. The professor mentioned that, too. More red tape's all we need! I don't know what the government thinks it's playing at sometimes. But we're allowed to just look, aren't we? Eh? Surely that's all right, isn't it, Gregsy? Course, your ladyship. Anything you say, your ladyship. But please don't get your dainty hands dirty, will you? Oh my goodness, Gregson. Don't worry. We wouldn't dream of touching anything, would we, Runo? She really knows how to get what she wants. Iris is a very skilled 10-year-old child. Government policy. Let's learn about some government. Using a high voltage electricity to somehow disassemble a man's body and then beam him across to the Crystal Tower. It's an extraordinary thing to attempt, especially in public. True, it was by far the most unusual of experiments planned for the exhibition, mind. To be honest, I'm a bit surprised it was allowed. Carrying out something so dangerous with so many spectators present, I mean. The government's doing everything it can to promote new science and technology at the moment. And they're more worried about being ahead of the game than the odd spot of public safety infringements. They could be the first to develop some new technology and makes Britain more powerful in the future, you see? Yes, I suppose that's true in a way. So the powers that be are placing a heavy emphasis on scientists' rights at the moment. What sort of rights? They're making it so that any theories the brains have remain their legal property, as it were. Right through developing it into a practical idea and even going into production. Which is the infuriating reason us coppers aren't allowed to touch this crime scene. Because the new highfalutin Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act forbids it. Ah, I see now. The only people with permission to investigate here are from some brand new department at the yard. The Forensic Investigation Team, it's called. We've been relegated to keep it guard. The Forensic Investigation Team. Any old fool can see that this heap of scrap metal was a sham to begin with. Just because it says scientific equipment on the paperwork, we can't do a flaming thing with it. Poor Gregsy. He's very head up, isn't he? Remind me again, what's this new legal act that means we're not allowed to touch the scene here? Are you having at me? Having me at it, Sunshine? It's the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. Yes, I think Hurley mentioned that recently, with a real twinkle in his eyes, I remember. I'm sure he did, your ladyship, I'm sure he did. Passed especially for this great exhibition it was. And all scientists have to do is present their ideas or inventions to some suits in the civil service. And if it gets rubber stamped, that's a guarantee of rights to maintain the invention's confidentiality. What does that really mean? Think about it. Think of all the world-changing new inventions on display every day at this exhibition. And although a good half of them are a load of cobblers, if you ask me, put forward by shammers like yourself. Hey, rude. Thanks for that. Oh, I love how absurd some of the inventions here are. It's all so fun. It might be fun to you, but a member of the force has to be present in every single demonstration. Can you imagine, eh? Hang science, that's what I say. Oh, I don't think so. That sounds like my dream job. You'd sooner think otherwise after spending a day guarding these shammers' bogus contraptions. But if they're all bogus, how can anyone hope to demonstrate them? There'd be no point. Yeah, well, there's a point, sadly. Sorry. Thanks to another of our government's bright ideas. If any theory or invention is deemed to show potential, the government hands out a research grant. And the scientist gets funding. Exactly! That's what they're all after, all these shammers coming from far and wide to clog up Hyde Park. And who has to keep them all safe, eh? Who has to smile politely and welcome them? Us coppers, that's who! So you can see why I say it now, can't you? Hang science, hang it! Oh, maybe I can see your point. Apparently, Professor Harebrain lives and works in Germany now, conducting his research. That's right, came back to Britain especially for the great exhibition, as I understand it. Probably after one of the government research grants. Actually, we learned something else about the professor earlier today. About his time in further education. Turns out he was at university with someone we both know. Lord Van Zieks. Hey, what's that? That's news to me! But if Van Zieks mans the prosecution, then as the accused, the professor's fate is sealed, because the Reaper will get him one way or another. Blimey! That man's beyond me. I don't know what goes on in that head of his. Talking of Van Zieks, this morning's paper ran the story of him being attacked. Read that? Oh yes, but Mr. Reaper is completely fine. Nothing to worry about. Yes, right. Glad to hear it. Still, the Reaper, huh? How long's that business gonna keep up, I wonder? The victim of this case, the investor, Mr. Odiousman. He was another of the Reaper's victims, or so I heard. Lord Brock Van Zieks is a top-class prosecutor, but even he can't always push the right verdict through. Sometimes justice can't win. Yes, I've heard about jurors being bribed and evidence being falsified. And that's how the notion of the Reaper the Bailey came about, isn't it? Obviously, Scotland Yard suspected Van Zieks initially. We all assumed he was taking matters into his own hands if he failed to seal the deal in court. Although the man himself denies that charge. Well, we've done a very thorough investigation, and the conclusion we've reached is that Lord Van Zieks is in no way related to the deaths of those people outside the courtroom. There's no question in my mind. I'd stake my reputation on it, I would. But if that's true, then how do you explain it? All those defendants couldn't have just coincidentally died if no one killed them. I know that, but I can't explain it. It's a mystery after all, isn't it? That's the whole point of the Reaper. Professor Harebrain mentioned something else. He said that at university, Lord Van Zieks was a totally different person. Easygoing and kind. You what? He said that it was after they both graduated that something happened to change the man. Do you have any idea what it was? No clue. Really? Look, I've got my hands full watching over this frustrating crime scene. Why don't you go and make a nuisance of yourself elsewhere, eh? Alright, let's look at stuff. Considering how badly damaged everything is, Professor Hairbrain was lucky to escape unscathed, I say. We should have a good look around the machine while we can, I think. Touch anything and I'll make sure I kill you before I get strung on myself, you hear? I won't touch a thing, I promise, so please spare a thought for your digestion. Anyway, do you really think that this machine could actually disassemble people like the professor claims? He asks, looking totally incredulous. Give it a rest, Sunshine. If we were allowed to examine all this bleeding scrap of metal, maybe we could answer that question. But we can't we? Because of the annoying rules, you mean? Exactly, the annoying, obstructive, flaming rules. No, look at the base of the machine there. Oh yes, there's a tool of some kind poking through the wire mesh. It's a screwdriver, I think. Oh, isn't it a lovely one? The handle's in the shape of a capital letter A. Is it? Oh yes, you're right. What's the matter with you? Don't touch anything, I said. Touch anything and I make sure I kill you before I get strung up myself, I said. Yes, I understand. Sorry, I only touched it a teeny weeny bit. Only touched it a little bit. But Gregsy, I'm very curious about this screwdriver. Really, very, very curious. Of course, your ladyship, you're so clever, your ladyship. Fancy spotting something like this. But I'm afraid I can't let you have it. But Rudo found it first. I assure you, I'll investigate it thoroughly. He's gone off with it. That was very mean. I'm afraid Inspector Gregson's gonna make a very clumsy and embarrassing mistake in next month's installment now. Poor Gregsy. Got punished. Right. Are you done here, Mr. Naruto? Sorry? Isn't it about time you were leaving? Or rather, it is about time you were leaving. That lot are here now. That lot? The forensic investigation team. They'll be giving me the heave-ho in a minute, too. Oh dear, poor Gregsy. Here, have another cup of my special blend to cheer you up. That hit the spot! Yup, hits it every time! Maybe that tea could make your voice not so crazy. Well, at least I've seen the scene with my own eyes. And it looks like this is as far as we're gonna get with our investigations here at least. Now I've been thinking. Hurley might know something, mightn't he? About what? About Mr. Reaper. And about what happened to Lord Van Zeeks, you mean? Because it sounds like something very significant occurred after he graduated from university. Heartbreak. Something that completely changed his life. Heartbreak. His little Japanese boyfriend cheated on him. What? Who said that? Who said that? Who would say something like that? Someone that reads too much fan fiction. Maybe, but I have no idea where to find Mr. Sholmes at the moment. He's in the middle of some big case, isn't he? Here, this is what you need. What is this? Some kind of entrance ticket? Madame Tusbel's? Is this supposed to mean something to me? You don't know it? It's the most popular attraction in London at the moment. It's very close to Baker Street, actually. We could go now if you like. No, we don't have time for visiting attractions today, Iris. We have a big trial tomorrow. But that's where Hurley is. What? At this popular London attraction? Yes. How is it that you know where he is? Hurley told me, but he told me to keep it a secret from you, Runo. Madame Tusbel's? I don't see how it could be related to the case we're investigating here, but then stranger things have happened. And when they happen, Mr. Sholmes is usually at the heart of them. Alright, let's... Nothing else here, right? Good, I'm tired of Greg's voice. I thought it sounded like Madame Toussaint's or whatever that wax thing is. Madame Tusbel's. Man, how long is this park gonna be here? 22nd October, Madame Tusbel's Museum of Waxworks. This is interesting. What is this place? Look at all these terrifying scenes, but why are all the people so still? Guillotines, ruthless murderers. I know what I'll be dreaming about tonight. They're all wax models. They're amazingly realistic, aren't they? What do you think, Runo? Shocked? Wax models? Ah! I've read about dead bodies in wax once in a magazine about strange phenomena. Depending on how corpses are kept after death, parts of them can turn to wax, apparently. It's called a depository. Stop talking about creepy things like that, Runo. You're scaring me. Anyway, a depository doesn't form readily, you know? It's only a very specific— Ah! What now? I've just remembered something else I read in another magazine about strange phenomena. There was an old lady, maybe a witch, who used to pour molten wax over corpses and put them on display. None of the exhibits in here are real. They're all entirely man-made replicas. They can't be. Do you really expect me to believe that? Just look at them. Oh. There's no way anybody could make models of people that are this realistic. And they're all such gruesome scenes. What are you doing on there, Mr. Sholmes? Wait. What is it? Oh, no. I must be seeing things. Excuse me? What is that? Is this an arm? It looks like an arm, doesn't it? Maybe one of the waxwork models has fallen over. You don't think it could be the work of one of the mass murderers in here, do you? Runo, stop scaring me! Is it a wax arm or a real one? Come on, you're always pointing that finger of yours in court. Poke that arm now and see how it feels. Objection! I like it. I like it. Please do not touch the statues. Let's touch the statues. Is this some infamous murder? Yes, called Jane the Ripper. All her victims were young women. I knew it. You can tell by the way she's holding the knife. Sure sign of a murderer. Well, yes. Ah! What's the matter, Runo? I've worked it out. I know what she's doing. She's trying to fill that bathtub with blood so she can have a soak at her victim's gore. Not according to the information about the exhibit on the little board here. It doesn't mention anything about the bathtub. Really? Sorry, I don't think it's as significant. My neck hurts. And I still think it has to be there for a reason. Alright. That big heavy curtain is a very prominent position, isn't it? I have a nasty feeling there's going to be something truly terrifying behind it. Oh yes, that's the famous Tusbel special exhibit. It depicts one of England's most notorious killers. Do you want to pay the extra fee and have a look? Pay more money to be even more terrified? Oh, let me think about that for a moment. It was only a suggestion. That was a little too far. What's going on here? These models are so well made, I can't tell what's a waxwork and what's a real human. Or maybe all the exhibits are real people. And when it's closing time and all the visitors have gone home, they suddenly start moving about. Ugh, just thinking about it makes me wish it was closing time already and I was on my way home. Why is Sholmes in the picture? Ugh, is this an example of Western Sujigiri? I don't know what that is. You know, when an unscrupulous samurai randomly attacks a passerby to test his sword. I still don't know, no. But actually, a waxwork samurai would probably be hugely popular. Could you model it, do you think, Runo? Doing that Sujigiri thing you mentioned? Well, I do have a sword, but I have no intention of testing how sharp it is on a human subject. For now, at least. Alright, yo, what's up, Sholmes? It's... the great detective, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes has his own wax statue in here. Really? Well, he is world famous after all. It's an uncanny resemblance, isn't it? Makes my skin crawl to look at it. I know. But look, Runo, you can kick this Hurley and he doesn't move a muscle. Nah. You can't go around kicking the exhibits, Iris. Wait. It just moved, I'm sure. Not even a little bit, either. Really? Did it? And then look closely. There are beads of sweat on the face of this waxwork model. Mr. Sholmes, why are you pretending to be a wax exhibit? Shall we move on, Iris? Over there, look, there's a great murderer scene to enjoy, much more appealing.
Hold it!
My dear fellow, I take exception to your recoiling in such a manner as if you've seen something truly abhorrent.
If you guys remember, actually, from the anime intro to the boat where Kazuma died in game 1, the second, Sholmes doesn't sound like Kermit. This was an unfortunate reminder that Sholmes doesn't sound like Kermit and actually just sounds like an uppity British guy. My dear fellow, I take exception to your recoiling in such a manner as if you've seen something truly abhorrent. It's close to what he actually sounds like then.
My name is Kermit the Frog.
But it's much less exciting. Mr. Sholmes! I knew it!
Iris, what possessed you? I strictly forbade you from divulging my temporary waxwork secret to Mr. Naruhodo.
Temporary waxwork? What do you mean?
And then that kick! Could you have not exercised a little more restraint, you winded me?
Well, Runo has something he needs to ask you.
A question?
And I thought you'd probably be getting bored, too. So here we are.
Well, I can't deny that your timing was impeccable. Mere 2 minutes more being stationary like that. And then my great brain, upon which all my success has been built, would have turned to wax.
Thank goodness we arrived in time.
And indeed, in many ways, the pairing of you just saved the world from an imaginable loss.
Oh, Hurley, you do like to talk nonsense, do you? Wow, roasted. He could know something, it's true, about Lord Van Zeeks and what happened in the past to change him.
Now that you're here, let's take our time. How can I be of assistance? For you're in luck, I'm suddenly quite taken with this idea of conversing.
Oh, well, actually, I'm in quite a hurry.
And if my eyes don't deceive me, I believe something is afoot within the walls of this very museum. Most fascinating case, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
Moreover, I have a strong suspicion that it is related to the matter about which you've come to me now.
But how could it be?
We shall speak again presently, my dear fellow, but for now I must return to my work.
Well, what? Back to being a temporary waxwork exhibit? What is this place?
Madame Tusbel came to London from France 3 years ago, I understand. But she's since opened this little waxwork museum last year. It's enjoyed great popularity in London.
There are museums like this in Japan too, but these displays are something else. I mean, they aren't made from actual real people, are they?
The extreme realism of these waxwork models is a particular secret of the Tusbel's family, they say. They earned renown from during the French Revolution for the waxworks of victims of the guillotine.
Ugh, that sounds grim.
The gruesome scenes were portrayed with such realism in the expressions of the faces of the condemned.
Apparently, the sculptors would make the models directly from the corpses, right there at the site of the executions. That really turns my stomach.
That's just one of several legends about the Tusbel's family. Whether there's any truth to it, I couldn't say. But anyway, this museum houses models of famous people from all over the globe. Nevertheless, the most popular area of the museum by quite some margin is this House of Horrors.
House of Horrors?
Of course, visitor numbers are dwindling now as a result of the Great Exhibition. But people usually flock here to see the exhibits of some of London's most vile criminals at their gruesome work. Naturally, most of the miscreants portrayed here were sent to the gallows. So they're even stiffer now than the models of them.
Have you heard of poor taste?
My dear fellow, the public lives for poor taste. They yearn to be shocked.
So, the hideous exhibits in here are... They're all portrayals of real events that actually took place. Is it just me, or did temperature in here just seem to drop?
Anyway, I advise you not to think too deeply about what you see here.
No, he's back to being a waxwork, is he? What do you mean by a temporary waxwork, Mr. Sholmes?
Exactly what you see. I'm part of the exhibits here, catching these criminals in the act.
Catching them?
Every half an hour, I home in on a different killer in one of the displays and adopt a new pose to ensnare him. When members of the public come for a closer look, I offer them my hand to shake. For a shilling, I'll happily allow them to take a photograph with us.
Us? Does he mean him and the waxwork murderers in here? But why, Mr. Sholmes?
I need money. My dear fellow, isn't it obvious? For the money!
I knew it! I knew it! This man. He really roared at me there. Very fitting for the House of Horrors.
As it stands, I may struggle to pay this month's rent. And then I have the ravenous iris to consider.
Oh, Hurley, I'm so hungry. Aww.
If push comes to shove, I shall have to ask you to do your bit, Mr. Naruhodo.
What's he threatening to rope me into now?
So, with that in mind, how about a photograph? As a special treat, you may have your pick of the murderers and scoundrels in here. The choice is yours.
Maybe some other time.
Remember, Mr. Naruhodo, ignore me at your peril.
This man's a clown. Back to being a waxwork again? Is it just me, or did his final remarks sound a lot like a curse?
Well, what is it you like to ask me then?
Actually, it's about Lord Van Zeeks.
No, our friend Mr. Reaper. How did you find him? Well, I trust.
And so I filled Mr. Sholmes in about everything I'd learned. About Lord Van Zeeks, about Professor Hairbrain, and about the strange coincidence that they had been at university together. So I'm wondering, what was it that happened to make Lord Van Zeeks such a different person? I was sure that you know, Hurley. You said there was something going on here in this exhibit hall before, and that something was afoot, and that you believed it was related to what I wanted to ask you about. Mr. Sholmes, he's suddenly clammed up.
Well, it seems we've reached the
Greetings. Oh, greetings. Oh, hello. Where did she appear from? And what's she wearing? Could she look any more mysterious? I hope you are appreciating my museum. Sorry, have we... Mr. Sholmes, do you know this? Not again! My apologies. I am Esmeralda Tusbel. This is my museum of waxwork. What, you? You're the Madame Tusbel? Bien sûr. Though only 26 years young, I might add. Is that significant somehow? I'm a madame in name only. It adds certain je ne sais quoi. Right. Firstly, I must apologize for my waxworks. Or rather, one waxwork in particular. That'll be Mr. Sholmes, then. I was led to believe he was a great detective, but he seems unable to settle. Next time you move from your designated exhibit, there will be toil and trouble. No. She sounds deadly serious. That's a problem. How am I supposed to ask Mr. Sholmes about Lord Van Zeeks now? Let's not forget what Hurley said before, about something being afoot. Right here in the museum, I mean. Yes, I know, but... I'm so curious, I want to know what's happening here. Haven't we got enough on our plates already? This has to be Investigations Part 1 and 2, right? Oh my goodness, this is still Part 1. This is wild. Look, you guys, I gotta be up early. I gotta get up early. I gotta go back to Tampa. No. Did you make all these waxworks, Madame Tusbel? I did. I am the third generation of waxwork artisans, you know. Gosh! It was my grandmother who began the tradition in my family. Her fortunes were checkered, living through the turbulent times of the French Revolution as she did. No, that is, when she acquired the savoir-faire that leads to the astonishing lifelikeliness. All these waxworks really do look as though they're alive. In fact, they look more alive than Hurley. Yeah. What you see exhibited here represents the most atrocious of London's criminal past. All the waxworks were created in the presence of the real people on which they are modeled. In the hours immediately following the executions. That is the secret to the extraordinary lifelikeness. That sounds terrifying. All walks of life have similar challenges, I'm sure. To carry out one's trade par excellence, one must go to extraordinary lengths. My exhibits are a reflection of society. I create only that which the public wishes to see. Ugh, why couldn't the public have wished for something less horrifying? Do not fear. Sorry? This room is the only one in the museum with such a macabre theme. I do hope you'll explore. These are models of famous singers, actors, politicians. Something for every taste, I hope. It was Iris who dragged me straight in here, come to think of it. Sorry, perhaps I should have eased you into things. What's the situation with that abomination over here? Ah, my temporary waxwork model. He approached me some days ago, you see, with a business proposal. Oh, what sort of proposal?
My dear madam, what these sparse exhibits need is the addition of a world-famous great detective.
Or words to that effect? Huh. Naturally, I am well aware that Mr. Sholmes is widely known in London as a talented detective. It's a great detective, actually. He's very specific about it. Yes, the creme de la creme. So I was keen to come to some arrangements with him, of course. But sadly, we were unable to agree terms. Let me guess, someone wanted to charge an exorbitant price for his services.
For a mere £500, I will dive into your cauldron of wax this very moment.
Oh my goodness, this man's trying to sell his own body. Or words to that effect. Mr. Sholmes might have overdone it slightly with the sales pitch. Regrettably, the museum has a shortage of funds at the moment due to unforeseen circumstances. So he came to the current arrangement instead. Surely he doesn't really need to do what he's doing, though, does he? I would think not, but he was very insistent.
I have a 50 shilling problem that must be resolved by the morning.
Or words to that effect. It's the pawnbroker, that's what it is. He must have something to redeem. Is the consulting detective work not going so well? Something afoot. I wonder, could I ask you something? Bien sûr. I'm just curious, is anything going on in the museum at the moment? Some kind of incident, perhaps? Whoever suggested such a thing to you? Oh, well, it was your temporary waxwork over there who mentioned it to me a little. Oh, he's disappeared.
The wax model is a work of art, not some tawdry object for trade.
Ah. There you are. Leaving the exhibit again when you should be working. Do you wish to be melted down?
My dear Madame Tusbel, save your reprimands. There are more pressing concerns. The wax can wait. So our ideas about your current problem we must throw into the melting pot instead. Personally, I would advise you not to involve the police.
Why ever not? She's turned as white as a sheet.
Because you have at your disposal a great detective whose services you may employ for a mere 50 shillings. Though please be aware that I insist upon payment in advance.
Very well. Let us see if the great detective is able to live up to his name, shall we?
Before I engage my analytical process, I must ask you to clarify something. What, pray, is behind the curtain?
That is the Tusbel special exhibit. There is an extra charge to see it.
Nah, the special exhibit in the House of Horrors. It must depict a special killer then, I presume. Would you be so kind as to draw back the curtain, I wonder?
Ah, absolutely no. There is nothing amiss behind there.
Nothing amiss, madam. What about the arm protruding ominously from under the curtain?
Ah.
I strongly encourage you to allow me to see what lies beyond before the situation worsens.
Yes, very well. I will draw back the curtains, but only a soupçon. We're gonna see Van Zieks getting stabbed in the face.
I must confess I peeked behind the curtain earlier. The Tusbel special exhibit is a very bleak graveyard scene indeed. And yet, somewhat surprisingly, the waxwork killer one would expect is nowhere to be seen. What does strike one, however, is the portly gentleman lying peacefully on his back on the floor.
Well, then perhaps, Mr. Sholmes, that man on the floor is the ruthless killer himself.
I'm afraid not, my dear fellow. He's a perfectly ordinary London gentleman. Not even a waxwork, in fact.
What?
As skillfully made as these waxworks are, they are always distinguishable from real humans. So, allow me to present my two conclusions. The first is that a sizable business transaction has been taking place in this special exhibit.
Why? Why would you say that?
And the second is that the aforementioned transaction is linked to a serious crime.
Ah! She looks as pale as a candle wax. I don't understand.
So, Madame Tusbel, as you've agreed to my fee, you shall now have the pleasure of seeing this famously great detective and temporary exhibit at work.
Oh my goodness. Sholmes, I really can't with you.
To begin with, we must ask ourselves what exactly is afoot here in this museum. The answer is revealed by the bundle of banknotes protruding so helpfully from your bag. In my estimation, some 200 pounds.
That is all my own money.
So what does this large sum of money reveal? Not as so much as the involuntary glance you cast, it would seem, Madame Tusbels. Yes, the answer lies where your eyes fall now. The significance of the 200 pounds is revealed by that public notice. Waxwork for sale. Your business has hit hard times, it would seem. In short, you sold the infamous killer, the centerpiece of your special exhibit, for a sum of 200 pounds.
No!
Now, let us explore the next curiosity with which we are presented. Who is the portly gentleman stretched out so peacefully on the floor? It would appear that the man has suffered a severe shock, and the cause of which is clearly known to you.
Ah!
Unfortunately, madam, keeping secrets does not appear to be your forte. What dealt the man such a shocking blow was, of course, the 200 pounds. It would appear that you twisted this gentleman around your little finger most effectively.
What are you suggesting?
He rashly agreed to purchase the waxwork for the sum of 200 pounds. Only when he came to hand the money over did it occur to him what an extortionate amount he was paying. But the money was no longer in his hands. And the result, the scene we see before us, he collapsed in shock. Yes, the killer in this special exhibit fetched a killer price. We can only pray that the gentleman's dreams are not plagued with regret. The question that arises then is what has become of the waxwork that changed hands? Let us consider that problem for a moment.
You cannot possibly.
What immediately strikes me about this conundrum is the young man standing over there. Who is this fellow? To find the answer, we need only observe his neckerchief, such as worn by policemen as a secret sign to fellow members of the force that a crime is being perpetrated. Yes, this young man is an undercover policeman currently investigating this museum. I know him well. In fact, it's Sergeant John Clay.
What are you talking about?
The man's quite a celebrity. He received triple accolades at this last year's policing awards.
But
next, we turn our attention to the old man sat before him with the particularly unsightly visage. I've been watching closely and he hasn't moved a muscle, almost in fact as if he were a waxwork.
But you...
Your reaction only confirms my suspicions, madam. I noticed it at once, of course. Observe! The telltale sign that instantly proves whether or not this old man is waxwork is the obvious price tag. Threepence, a tragically low price, you might say. Although perhaps the going rate for aged waxworks are riddled with cracks. And you sold it to the portly gentleman for an exorbitant 200 pounds. The sort of plucky behavior that's sure to attract the attention of Scotland Yard. Isn't that so, madam?
I do not.
Yes, the waxwork you sold has already been seized by the police and remains in their custody as we speak. The old man must now be reunited with his grave in this special exhibit, and not a moment too soon. And thus concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this horrifying puzzle. I see I've stunned you all into silence.
You have, Hurley, you have. And you've obviously upset this young lady in the process. Her cauldron looks awfully hot. If I could just bring up 1 point, Mr. Sholmes.
Nah, the notorious Naruhodo 1 point. I'm all ears, my dear fellow.
According to your deduction, then, the special exhibit featured this old policeman. So that would mean that he's the particularly ruthless murderer, wouldn't it?
The killer policeman, Ottermole.
Sorry?
It was a mysterious series of murders that rattled the capital only last year. The police rushed to the scene every time, only to find the culprit had disappeared into the ether.
And it turned out the culprit was a policeman himself, a senior officer by the name of Ottermole. So you mean that's who the sinister-looking old man there is supposed to be?
Indeed, it is a particularly grim face, is it not? Unforgettable, in fact. Yes, I remember that odious countenance only too well.
But is it 200 pounds a lot of money for a wax model?
It would be enough to afford one of the latest steam carriages, if that puts things in perspective.
So, it is quite a lot, then.
Is there anything else you wish to add before I melt you down?
That bubbling wax is looking more and more ominous. Ugh, the smell of all that molten wax is starting to worry me. Mr. Sholmes did more or less just accuse her to her face, so... I think I might have to call on your assistance here, Iris, if that's all right. To make some minor corrections to the great detective's great deductions. Of course it's all right. We'll soon set things straight. Well, let's get started then, shall we? Before Madame Tusbel vents her anger.
Just what I was waiting to hear, my dear fellow. So, Madame Tusbel, in accordance with our agreement, you shall now have the pleasure of seeing this famously great detective in temporary exhibit at work.
She definitely looked in this direction, it's true. But I'm not sure she'd sell any of her waxworks even for 200 pounds. Oh? She must pour her heart and soul into making them, don't you think? Over and above the wax. For me, I wouldn't sell them for anything. For that much money, I would, but it sounds like that makes me a bad person. Well, anyway, I wonder if the 200 pounds could have some other significance. Let's follow that furtive glance again and see if there's anything else that could explain it. What's that note doing pinned on the wall there? No, yes, let's see. Dear Madame Tusbel, we've taken the prisoner from this room. The price for a safe return is 200 pounds. Have the money ready by noon on 23rd October. What? This is just like the sort of thing that's left behind when someone is kidnapped. Yes, it's a ransom note. Exactly.
Take that!
And the significance of the 200 pounds is revealed by that ransom note.
Quite so, and we must congratulate these criminals on their inventiveness, abducting a waxwork. 200 pounds is no small ransom fee, and you clearly intended to pay it.
The model in question has special importance, so I put together all the money I have.
In summary then, the 200 pounds you have in your handbag is ransom money. Now let us explore the next curiosity with which we are presented. Who is the portly gentleman stretched out so peacefully on the floor?
So if the waxwork was kidnapped, where does that leave us in terms of who this man is? We could just ask him when he comes round. And I think the point of this exercise is to understand the beauty of the deduction process, Iris. Yes, you're right. Hurley's trying so hard, we mustn't let him down. Well, there's little doubt that he's suffered a shock. That much seems clear. But in that case, what's Madame Tusbel's trying to hide? Let's have a closer look around. Madame Tusbel's has a very long hair, doesn't she? Yes, but you couldn't tell looking at her from the front. You know, it looks rather like a whip, don't you think? The sort of whip that could have floored the gentleman with a single crack. That seems a little far-fetched, even for you, Runo. Alright. Wait, what? This is just Madame Tusbel's right hand, isn't it? Yes, it must be. I can clearly see her left hand after all. Oh, but wait a minute. This is a left hand as well. Look. Don't say such creepy things, Iris, please. And seems very stiff, too. And in fact, it's really hard. You mean? It's made of wax.
Take that!
What dealt the man such a shocking blow was, of course, the waxwork hand.
Indeed, with a solid waxwork limb, one could deliver a very substantial blow.
How could you? The hand protruding from the bottom of your cape. It ought to be a right hand, but closer inspection reveals that in fact it's a left hand.
And somewhat masculine as well. In other words, it does not belong to you, madam. It is the hand of a waxwork model.
Yeah.
Some of the visitors to my museum can be troublesome. They meddle with the exhibits and cause damage.
So you mean that arm?
Yes, this gentleman saw fit to try and remove it as a souvenir.
No small keepsake.
Like taking a whole branch of a cherry tree when you go to view the blossoms.
I'm afraid I had to teach the man a lesson.
You confronted the man and tried to take the arm back. And the result?
In the scene we see before us, he was knocked unconscious. A point we may need to revisit later, but for the time being, we have our conclusion. Yes, the killer in this special exhibit has been kidnapped.
According to Mr. Sholmes, the yellow neckerchief is a sign to other policemen that some crime is underway. A way of communicating with his colleagues without revealing his identity, yes. It's a secret that's closely guarded by Scotland Yard. That Mr. Sholmes didn't hesitate to give away. Well, uncovering secrets is in any true detective's nature, of course. Right, anyway, judging from Madame Tusbel's reaction to Mr. Sholmes' deduction, I think perhaps we might not have identified the man quite correctly. Oh. What the? The man has a stub sticking out of his shoulder where his arm should be. Ah, well that settles that then. Right, so this isn't a real person at all. His entire arm's been ripped off from the shoulder down. His arm's been... Of course, that ties in with what we just found out.
Take that!
Who is this fellow? To find the answer, we need only observe his shoulder stub.
No such boneless human walks this earth, of that I can assure you. In other words, the man standing here, young Sergeant John Clay, is in fact defying all odds a waxwork model.
I seem to remember it was you who concluded he was a real person in the first place, Mr. Sholmes.
He has become quite a celebrity in London, being the winner of no less than 3 policing awards last year. I simply had to make a model of the man.
Naturally, what other explanation could there be?
And it was this detective's arm that was pulled off by the man on the floor in the special exhibits, wasn't it?
Next, we turn our attention to the old man sat before him with the particularly unsightful visage.
A killer policeman called Ottermole, was it? Was he well known? It was all over the papers last year, but I can't say I know what he looks like. It's a very low price, though. Threepence isn't much money. Only enough for a few measly hours of gas and Mr. Garrideb's delightful lodgings, in fact. So this is the special killer taken from the exhibit, is it? The waxwork that somebody stole from the museum and tried to ransom for £200. Is this crusty old killer policeman Ottermole? Really? Perhaps we should have a good look around again, see if another idea crops up. What the heck? Look at this! The old man's tapping his foot like crazy. He seems to be fast asleep, though. He's not tapping his foot consciously then, so you mean... It must be a twitch. Never mind that, the point is, waxworks don't tap their feet. Or twitch. And look at his arms, too. We have seen a scarf like that somewhere else around here, haven't we? I don't believe it. It's a secret sign that lets other detectives know some criminal activity is underway. Yes, it's a slightly strange choice of outfit if he was trying to go unnoticed. Ah, he must be a detective disguised as a policeman. Or a detective disguised as a waxwork model of a policeman. He doesn't look like he's clever enough to think of something like that, though. Perhaps you should try to be a little more polite about him, Iris.
Take that!
The telltale sign that instantly proves whether or not this old man is a waxwork is the obvious twitch.
Even the most realistic waxworks do not exhibit a twitch. In other words, this splendid old man is in fact a genuine member of Scotland Yard.
Slight shift in your choice of adjectives there, then.
And there you have it. Well, Madame Tusbels.
Well, what? It was me who contacted the police and demanded that someone come in the first place.
He is clearly fatigued.
He is clearly fatigued. He is sound asleep.
But then, what's this tag about showing a price of 3 pence?
No doubt the price tag of the muffler which the old Bobby purchased recently at the local market. And I presume you've observed the scarf tied around his arm. Does not strike you, Mr. Naruto?
Yes, the secret sign used by detectives to show that some criminal activity is currently underway.
Of course, because, as you know, there has been just such criminal activity happening here. As you deduced from the very beginning, Detective.
So, it would seem that we finally arrived at the truth.
The waxwork of the especially ruthless killer from the special exhibit has been kidnapped.
And Scotland Yard are already investigating. But the model's whereabouts remain a mystery. Thus concludes Herlock Sholmes' great deduction of this horrifying puzzle.
All sorts of people visit my museum here. Men and women, young and old. Sometimes they drop in just for a short time on their way back from the pub. I welcome them all. But if anyone tries to damage my exhibits, I do not take it lightly. Anyway... Your great deduction was even more enchanting than I had been led to believe.
It was a pleasure, my dear madam. I'm gratified that you enjoyed the spectacle. And as for your rough customer, I have no doubt he'll regain consciousness shortly and return home. What concerns me more is the waxwork from the special display, if it was indeed genuinely abducted.
Yes, tragically, it was.
Then I should ask you to recount to us the events surrounding the stolen waxwork, in as much detail as possible, if you please.
Very well. But after I have told you what I know, I must insist that you return to your work.
The talents of a great detective could be put to better use, I feel, but as you wish.
Tell us more about the stolen waxwork, please.
It was some days ago now when I came in here one morning. I immediately noticed that a waxwork was missing from the special exhibit here.
It is your most prominent display, so that's why the curtains were closed.
And I found the ransom note in its place.
The culprit must have broken in during the night and taken it then. So this waxwork that was stolen, it was a model of some horrible criminal, I suppose?
Of a particularly horrible criminal, in fact. The killer who left a more profound scar on society than any other, I would say. The Professor.
Not a name I've heard of.
So, Mr. Naruhodo, it seems the circle is complete.
Sorry. The Professor case happened around the time I was born, didn't it?
Indeed it did, Iris. 10 years ago, a series of murders that rocked the capital.
10 years ago?
Yes, at exactly the time that Brock Van Zix graduated from university, in fact.
What? Surely he's not saying... So the big event that changed Mr. Reaper's life.
As you've surmised, it was the Professor case.
Who was this professor then?
It was a series of gruesome murders that had all of London gripped in terror a decade ago. After 5 victims were killed, the man was arrested and put to death.
And now he's immortalized here in wax for all Londoners to admire and enjoy. Though, of course, he happens to be absent at present on account of the abduction.
But I don't understand. How is all this related to Lord Van Zix?
You must first understand, my dear fellow, why it is that the Professor earned such infamy. It was due to the victims he chose, some of Whitehall's finest.
What do you mean, Hurley?
Those murdered by the Professor were some of the highest members of the British aristocracy. Members of the nobility, even royalty. It sent shockwaves through the country's administration.
Members of the... Ah, wait, of course. What Professor Harebrain said. Lord Van Zix is from a family with noble blood. No gosh!
It was the 5th victim that led to the Professor's arrest. And the last of the killer's prey was a young noble by the name of... Clint Van Zix.
No, I don't believe it. Van Zix?
I'm sure you can piece together the rest for yourself. In the wake of his older brother's murder, the young Barak pursued a career as a prosecutor.
Oh, so that's who the painting was, I suppose.
And eventually became the Reaper we know today.
I had no idea Lord Van Zix had such a tragic past.
No, but the tragedy doesn't stop there. Well, I'm afraid that's all I can say on the matter, for the time being at least. After all, I have work to do. There's a waxwork exhibit.
I'm afraid I shall have to excuse myself as well.
No, yes, of course. It's been a pleasure. Well, none of the predicted scenarios I've been analyzing involved you coming to visit me here. Oh. Well, none of the predicted... Anyways.
It has been too long, it really has. I'm delighted to see you, Barack.
It's been 10 years, and here we are, meeting in a prison of all places.
And I can't forgive myself for what happened to Mr. Aspen. I just can't. I still can't believe it could happen. My hypothesis.
Tomorrow, the courts will decide.
Yes. I have a young Eastern man acting for my defense. He seems reliable enough, though. It was an accident, a terrible accident. He assures me he can prove it.
I must warn you.
Oh, I know. I've heard already. You're going to be prosecuting, aren't you?
Yes.
Since I returned to England, I've heard lots of stories. Barack, are you really?
What?
Never mind. I know that you have my best interests at heart.
My friend is on trial. I wouldn't entrust it to anybody else.
Of course, I fully understand. Thank you, Barack.
Until tomorrow, then, and I'll see you in court. Hey, at least Van Zeeks trusts us to uncover the truth now. He's seen us. He's seen us turn up some BS. When it seems completely the opposite, he's like, alright, if anybody can do it, it's that one Japanese dude I hate. But that does it here for episode number 28. I'm so tired and I gotta wake up and go back to Tampa super early. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. But I really like this case. It's just that episode, I was not expecting a 3-hour episode. I was like, it should be like, what, hour 40 to 2. Like, 2 is the high end. And then, like, case conclusions, we have sometimes like 2.5, 3 hours. 3 hours for, like, literally finishing off the game. But no, just starting off case number 3 here, 2 hours and 54 minutes. A little ridiculous, but hey, it is what it is. But I actually really enjoyed it. This is very interesting. I loved going and investigating Van Zeek's office. His apprentice is weird. I felt like it looked like he was wearing the underjackets of Sholmes here, but Sholmes was in the Wax Museum, so I don't know who that was supposed to be. But it is somebody apparently we've had an encounter with. But I feel like that person is evil. So what if it's Lord Strongheart is... I don't know, that makes no sense. He's not the right size. But he had a very Sholmesy look to him. I don't know. But I'm really curious to see what happens. This is very interesting, very captivating. The only reason I honestly felt that this video was as long as it was is because of how tired I am. I honestly didn't notice it was running super late until it was like an hour 40 in, and I was like, wait, when is this going to end? So I actually really enjoyed this introduction here to the return of the great departed soul. Part of me is wondering if that dude was killed and then the waxwork was somehow used to, like, make it look like he was in the machine, but he was actually murdered and then put up there. But that doesn't really make sense. I mean, how did he get up there? I feel like he was harpooned with that hidden crossbow. I feel like he got harpooned, and that's probably how he died. But then why would you leave that there at the scene, barely hidden? I have no idea. So this is very, very interesting. I'm curious to learn more about Van Zeek's past. We know that he's been betrayed by someone he thought was like a close person, so maybe that professor was Japanese and killed his brother. I don't know. Curious to find out what's going on there. But it was very cool hanging out in Van Zeek's room. That was really cool, looking at his chalices, looking at his little Warhammer setup and all kinds of things like that. So this was really fun. So let me know what your favorite part of the episode was. Was it all the character development in terms of Van Zeek's, in terms of Gina, in terms of Iris still having Gregson by the crisps. What was your favorite part of the episode? Let me know in the comment section down below. I, of course, really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're not yet part of the Allie's Treasure Trove family, I'd love to have you join me here. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, before I get on out of here, I do have to give a big shout out to all my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so much, you all, for going above and beyond with your support of the channel. I really, truly do appreciate it. Do have 4 Ultimate Excavators: Keith Muna, Jack Prez, Mako, and Stephen Olivo. And then we also have 3 Gemstone Miners, Andon, Mark Mardini, and Stephen Bly. And then 1 Crystal Collector of John Michek. But thank you so much to all of my patrons. Like I said, really appreciate each and every one of you. I hope that you guys are having a blast, and I hope you guys are still enjoying being patrons. But that will do it for me here. Definitely had a blast. Definitely need to go ahead and wrap things up, though. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Take care, and I hope to catch you in the next episode as we unearth some more mysterious activities here on Allie's Treasure Trove. So we're going into Trial Part 1 next time. Not sure how this is going to start off, but I'm very excited to see the interactions between Van Zeeks, us, and of course, Professor Hairbrain. Really, really digging this so far. So I hope you all are as well. But yes, I hope you'll join me next time. Take care, everybody, and hope to catch you in the next episode. Bye!